Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, everybody, thank you for joining us for the June 9th, 2026 Special City Council meeting, where we will be deliberating and acting on the proposed charter revisions from the Charter Revision Commission. Madam Clerk, when you are ready, will you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Melly Garthwaite.
Melly Garthwaite at large, present.
Councilman Peter Rivera.
Peter Rivera at large, present.
Councilman Sean Ronan.
Here.
Councilwoman Ann Heffernan is absent. Councilwoman Nancy Tagliatella.
Councilwoman Nancy Tagliatella, 2nd District, present.
Councilwoman Sarah Akbarali.
Councilwoman Sarah Akbarali, 3rd District, present.
Councilman Gary Donovan.
Councilman Gary Donovan, 4th District, present.
Councilman Edward McMillan.
Councilman Edward McMillan, 5th District, present.
Councilwoman Dawn Callahan.
Councilwoman Dawn Callahan, present.
Councilwoman Catherine Tucker.
Councilwoman Catherine Tucker, 7th District, present.
Councilman David Beaton.
Councilman David Beaton, 9th District, present.
Councilman Ronald Quagliani.
Ron Quagliani, 10th District, present.
And Chairman Christopher Vargo.
Chairman Christopher Vargo, 8th District, present.
And we have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And next, when you are ready, if you would please read the call of the meeting.
Notice of special meeting, Charter Revision, June 9th, 2026, 6:30 p.m., City Council Chambers, 3rd floor, City Hall. Notice is hereby given that in accordance with Rule 4.5 of the Rules of Procedure of the City Council, Chairman Christopher Vargo, Jr. has called a special meeting of the West Haven City Council to be held at 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, June 9th, 2026, in the City Council Chambers, 3rd floor, 355 Main Street, West Haven, Connecticut. The purpose of this special meeting is as follows: deliberation and actions on the Charter Revision Commission's proposed revised charter.
Thank you, Stacy. All right, we will dive right in. Just to lay out how I vision this working. First thing is, Chairman of the Charter Revision Commission, Mr. Art Kelly, is here. He's going to give a brief presentation on all of the hard work that his commission has done. And then the ball's going to be in our court. My plan is to go essentially chapter by chapter, and what I'm going to do is my best to break everything down into manageable pieces. So if it's a relatively short or easy chapter, we'll just talk about the chapter as a whole. If not, then we will break it down into sections. The only thing that we are acting on is any changes that we want to recommend to the CRC. So we are not voting on accepting their changes. The document is what it is. It's anything that we want to change. We could do it one of two ways. Either very specific language, which is the attorney's preference, or a conceptual change where we would like them to consider just an idea and then have the CRC and the attorneys work out the actual verbiage. All we need is simple votes for any of that. So what I'll do is I'll say we are now on this section. I'll ask you to raise your hands if you have any discussion, if you have any motions. I do not anticipate a lot of back and forth with Chairman Kelly. That's not the purpose of these meetings. That's going to be on the 24th. If there's a question as to why the commission recommended something or what something means, then it would be appropriate for either he, or if he's not here, then I'm sure Councilman Quagliani could probably weigh in because he attended all of those meetings. But I do not want to have a back and forth deliberation. That's coming in a couple of weeks. This is our time to put in the changes that we want done. Any questions? All good? Okay. Chairman?
Now it's on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, and good evening to all the council members. As you know, the Charter Revision Commission met on March 19th as an organizational meeting, and we had our final meeting as a commission on our draft recommendations to you on May 28th. Tonight, all I was going to do was summarize briefly what those recommendations are. First, terms of office for mayor, town, city clerk, and council. Second, gender neutrality, including altering the title of chairman to chair for the council, boards, and commissions. Third, update department provisions based upon current practice. Fourth, incorporate provisions pertaining to the West Haven Fire Department, Allentown. Fifth, address status of library and education functions consistent with budget and departmental functions. Sixth, clarify council contract functions pertaining to multi-year agreements. 7, address ethics standards, including charter compliance requirements. 8, update language to comply with law, including voting technologies. 9, compliance with Simons versus Canty prohibition of recall of elected officials. 10, elimination of elected treasurer and tax collector. 11, succession of elective office revisions, including the role of council chair and new vice chair. 12, consolidate department and board and commission provisions. 13, address the issue of departmental flexibility to take advantage of state and regional service opportunities. 14, establish uniform practice for consultation with corporation counsel, personnel, and finance officials. 15, address departments no longer required and update functions to comply with law. 16, enable the mayor to approve police chief following recommendation. And 17, modify language pertaining to the ability of retirees to serve in government. Those are the main recommendations that are part of our report to you. There were a lot of language changes that the attorneys had put a lot of thought into this document before we even met. And that's why a lot of this was able to get done in such a short period of time. I would like to thank attorneys Cassini and Mednick for all the work they put in. They did the bulk of the work. We had the easy part. But I also would like to thank the Charter Revision Commission, who did a good job, and they all participated in one way or the other. Also, Councilman Quagliani, whose experience and knowledge of the council and the charter brought a lot to our meetings. The mayor and the chair of the council, Chairman Vargo, also had input, which we appreciate. And I will be hanging around for a little bit if there is anything you need me to call on. If not, Chairman Vargo knows how to get a hold of me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And on behalf of the City Council, I want to thank you, your Vice Chair, and the entire commission, plus the attorneys. We gave you a Herculean task to get this done in a very short amount of time so we could do our part and then send it back to you so we can get this on the ballot. And you all performed. I do have questions and recommendations, as I'm sure a lot of folks do, but there's honestly nothing in here that's a line in the sand for me. I think that you all did an excellent job. If it goes in this way, I'm comfortable. There's a couple of things that I think should be looked at, but by and large, you all did an absolutely stellar job, and I want to thank you all for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also, I want to let you know that we look forward to any recommendations you may have and to deliberate them as a charter revision. So we look forward to working with you, and certainly at our combined meeting on the 24th.
Sounds good. All right. So we will start on page 1. So chapter 1 is the incorporation and general powers of the city of West Haven. There's a new definition section. So what I want to do is we'll start with a combined section 1 through section 7. Are there any questions, comments, or motions on chapter 1, sections 1 through 7? Seeing none? Okay,
Let me just add for you, if you look to the footnotes, you'll see that we've footnoted every section. But if you're looking for those that have been proposed as changes, for instance, if you look at the bottom of the page where it says C1, C2, that's page 1, page 2. On the bottom of page 2, footnotes 9, 10, 11, they say new. That's your shortcut to know that those were voted on and have been proposed as changed. If there's no change, it just points to the part that it came from, where it exists in the charter now.
Thank you, Attorney Cassini.
I have a question about
Hold
voting.
on, I don't know if our mics are working because I don't hear them. Okay,
Ready?
good.
All right, so the question I have is about voting districts. It does appear that that is new language, correct? Section 8.
No, the new language
footnote
begins.
8, Section 7.
Footnote 9 is the new language that begins. Definition. Nothing up to sections 1 through 7 are new.
Okay, so section 7 you're saying is not new. Section 8 rather is not new.
Yeah, definitions is where it begins. Footnote number 9, section 8.
Got it. Okay.
Is everybody good with sections 1 through 7?
So it's hard to look between these two things. So 13, the footnote number 13, where is that?
That's in the definitions.
It's in the definition.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
Okay, that's right. All right, thank you.
Okay, going once, going twice, sections 1 through 7. Okay. So we will focus on section 8, which is the definitions. Terry Cassini, a question probably for you.
Yeah.
I have a comment. Councilman Tucker, would you mind turning off your mic? Thanks. That's good. Definition E, contract.
Yep.
So in here it says that the contract is defined, among other things, it's an agreement to settle litigation against the city, and also memoranda of understanding, memoranda of agreement, letters of understanding, letters of agreement.
I understand that that's an expansion of the current setup.
Correct. Now, you and I have talked about this. I personally am leaning towards being in favor of the city council settling lawsuits against it. But it is not the practice of the city. And the reason is that the city council, in effect, excuse me, has already approved settlements up to a certain dollar amount by voting on the budget. And that's the rationale that's being used by Corporation Council forever.
Agreed.
So the question is, we could either stop that practice and go with what a number of other municipalities do, and their legislative body does approve litigation settlements, or we have to modify this language. And I'd like to hear from my colleagues of what the preference would be. But first, if you articulated a reason not to have the city council.
Well, there's a couple of reasons.
If you could do that for us.
When we're defining contract here, it's because later you all already have the authority, the obligation to review and approve contracts that are longer than 3 years, or that have extension terms that could push something beyond 3 years. So you can imagine that if a litigation was settled such that the payment had to stretch out over 3 years, it would qualify for that as an agreement, so to speak, right? So I think that would fall already within the purview. You could choose to add a dollar figure above which you wanted to review that settlement. This municipality is a little bit different because you are self-insured up to a point, but not up to such a point that the insurance company wouldn't ultimately end up having final say. Because of the premiums that we pay for our liability insurance, the insurance company will ultimately decide if they will or if they won't settle a claim. I act as attorney in many of the cases, but in plenty of them, when we send it to insurance because we think it might be over a threshold, they have counsel that they work with. We've selected them. But the insurance companies and the councils are the ones that deal with the cases. And so up until the point where it needs to be signed by the mayor, as any settlement that obliges the city to pay anything does, or to waive liability, then we don't really get too involved. And so that would be, if we change it to that point, would be inserting this body into a process where it hasn't been before because it really hasn't been required. We can certainly put that in the charter. There would be some downstream effect where we have to bring it up with the insurance company as well. It's doable, as you point out. Other municipalities have figured it out, but it does add extra layers to the process.
So if the council's not interested in approving every settlement going forward, what would the language have to change to? Do we just remove that reference?
Yeah, so you have lots of dependent and subordinate clauses in there. So you could strike out agreements to settle litigations against the city. You could strike out memoranda of understanding, but you could leave in memoranda of agreement if you wanted. You could strike out letters of understanding. Letters and memoranda of understanding really act in the legal process as a placeholder that outline the general terms of an agreement before a contract is done. You can imagine when somebody's contracting with the city, especially now that I'm involved, there's lots of paperwork that goes into it that often doesn't actually outline the specifics. It's more of protections against the city. So if you wanted to retain the authority to approve the final contract, again, if it's over 3 years, but leave it up to other groups to deal with MOUs or collective bargaining or memorandum of agreement, letters and such like that, that really wouldn't change the process that you have right now. What we've highlighted here would be adding more process at city council level.
So right now, the city council generally does not approve memoranda of understanding, memoranda of agreement, letters of understanding, letters of agreement. Those are interim tentative agreements, and we approve the final product. Is that right? In practice?
Yes. In fact, I don't even think you approve all purchase orders either.
No, we don't.
So if you wanted to, you could. My preference would be if you have specific language that you prefer to let me know what that is. But again, if this is just conceptual, that's fine. You could say, as to E, defining contract, don't expand it beyond that which we're already doing right now. A lot of the purpose of defining contract or department head, other words in here, is because of other changes that have been recommended in an attempt to make sure that each and every department, you've heard me say this many times, acts in the same way with regards to procurement, contracting, and expenditures. But you could simply just say, thanks very much. We certainly want more oversight and insight, but we don't need to add things that get down to that type of granular level. And so then we would take this definition of contract, compare it to what we already have, and just make sure that they're mirrored so that you don't end up giving yourselves more work than you already have right now.
Okay. Is there any discussion on this issue? Councilman Quagliani?
Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
I'm good.
Good. So, if I recall, we didn't kind of just Attorney Mednick or yourself didn't compile this. This has come. This is what I'm trying to say. Is this typical language for other communities in Connecticut?
It is. Usually, if you dip your toes into one of those memorandum of understanding, then you get all the others that go along with it.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and I'm based on. I don't think you could have too many checks and balances. I mean, we have a storied history of reasons why we should continue to have the most checks and balances we could. So I'm comfortable with the language that's recommended here. Thank you.
Anybody else? Councilman Donovan?
Yeah, I was thinking the other way is like the lower memoranda of understanding, all those things. That's something we need to get involved with, but I understand what Councilman Quagliani is saying is that there's nothing wrong with extra checks and balances, especially what has happened in the past. But I'm not sure if these would make that big of a difference with us checks and balances, but I'm not the professional at this one at all, so I leave that up to you guys to explain it to us laypersons type a little bit better.
So the way I look at a memorandum of understanding, a memorandum of agreement, it outlines, and Kevin, please interrupt me if I'm wrong, but it outlines the concept of what the final deal is going to be without getting into the final nitty gritty details. It's saying that the two parties have an idea conceptually of what it's going to look like, and then they're going to iron out all of the details. So by this body approving those types of agreements, we're essentially signing off on the concept and the very high level terms, and then after the mayor, the other party, the attorneys all get together and hash out the final document that has all the the I's dotted and T's crossed, then we approve the final agreement. So this is kind of like a high level review of we're heading in a direction that we're comfortable with, or we could just stop and we could pull the brakes now and say, look, we're not comfortable with this idea. Go back to the drawing board before you even spend the money on a final agreement.
Yeah, the benefit of looking at it at this level is that you look at it much earlier in the process, and you throw the brakes on me putting together an entire contract. Our contracts now are very, very long because they've got lots of best practices procurement, lots of protections for the city, lots of notices and provisions that make sure that people understand that when you engage with the city in a contract, you are obligated to understand the process by which you must engage. And that you have to use union labor, that you have to be bonded and insured, that you have to carry a certain level of liability coverage that the city is named as, right? So those are just things that are in every single contract that we sign. What you would be approving each time is just the specifics of those. So the contract where we have somebody who monitors the parking over at the beach. Well, you understand the concept of that, and you knew who they were. They pitched it, and you saw what the proposal was. You understood the costs and the benefits that came from that, and that would all have been laid out in either letters or memos of understanding. Once you approve that, then we decide, okay, it's gotten the approvals that we need, now we can go to contract. And then the attorneys will negotiate, argue, whatever, about the specificities that are in those other parts that show up in every single contract every single time.
So I want to say that I want to echo what Councilman Quagliani said. I'm actually good with expanding what this body does. One thing that I've been keeping in mind, and I say this often with the stuff that we're being asked to do, I don't think about what this administration may do. I think about what the next one can do. And we've had a torrid past where administrations has not performed in ways that is beneficial to the city. So having another layer of checks and balances, in my mind, is a good idea. It creates more work for this body. It may slow down the process a little bit for the for the executive branch, but that may not be the worst thing in the world to make sure that we're operating in the best interest of everybody. So I'm good with it. I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention that we're now enlarging the scope of our role here.
And that was just one of my concerns was, by doing it, is it going to prolong it too long sometimes? Because we have, and could that cause...
It could.
Some kind of
you always have the ability later by ordinance to direct other departments to handle certain portions of it. You can put thresholds and say, right now you're approving contracts that are 3 years or longer than 3 years. You could put a dollar figure on those if you wanted to as well. So that you don't, if you end up spending too much time on things that you think are slowing the process down without providing the coverage that you're looking for, you can always move the parameters via ordinance. But I think Councilman Quagliani brings up a good point, which is this is our opportunity if we're talking about accountability and we're talking about sites into what have previously been dark corners where expenditures were made. Unfortunately, as I've told them before, a lot of us are bearing the responsibility for people that have been bad actors in the past that are no longer here. But this is your opportunity to make sure that there are protections that are put into place that look into all those corners so that things that have happened in the past are less likely to happen in the future.
All set?
Yeah.
Councilman Tucker?
I was just
Oh,
gonna
I'm
say,
sorry.
I'd be good either way, whatever the body wants, whether we go with it or don't, so.
Councilman Tucker?
I agree with Ron's comments about having more checks and balances, and I do agree. I think historically there have been a lot of practices in place that we didn't necessarily know or understand, and even if we don't have to weigh in heavily, or we could weigh in heavily, but I think that this is an opportunity to learn about the agreements that are happening before, and then you understand all the mechanics of what's behind them. And I think that that's not a bad thing for the council to be a part of. Could there be a special committee assigned to assist with this so that we don't run over in, timing and cause it to be a hardship on, the corporation counsel's office and the mayor?
To that point, there are municipalities that have litigation settlement committees that are separate bodies or that are comprised of members of this body or rotating members of this body that meet essentially in executive session because a lot of what we're talking about is confidential. And it's mostly informational so that everybody has better understanding of what's happening when and where. And what you could do is get started on it and see how it goes. And then say, okay, we're comfortable with the way people are operating right now. We don't need to review everything at such a granular level. Or you may find out, wow, there are some departments that we want to hear from more consistently, or some agreements that we need to look at more closely. But the thing is, you don't know until you know.
So I would just stop by saying that I think it's a good addition, and I would not mind the additional work. Thank you.
Councilman Rivera?
So just a quick question to test my understanding. This is post RFP, post vendor selection,
Yes.
right? And then it comes to the council
Yes.
for approval. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I understood that properly. And the only other comment I would make is I think there should be some sort of provision in here somewhere with a fixed dollar amount, whether it's a 3-year contract or a 1-year contract. So anything over, and I'm making this up, $1 million automatically has to come to the council, whether it's a 1-year, 2-year, 3-year
Sure.
contract.
That's in our purchasing ordinances, but I think part of this process post approval is that we take a look at our ordinances and make sure that they make sense.
Yeah.
And good luck with that.
Yeah, that's a jobs program, so to speak. But yes, whatever changes are accepted, even if it's just definitional, will have a downstream effect on ordinances as they exist now. So we'll have to go through them as they come up.
And just one more quick comment is, in the whole RFP process, I don't know if the council takes part of that. We've got a lot of talent on the council, and if people have time that want to just sit in and listen so they understand it and feed it back, I think that'd be a great idea too.
Thank you. Councilman Beaton?
Counselor, just a quick question regarding the granular level.
Yes.
So, for instance, if the fire department wanted to wear shorts from Labor Day to Memorial Day, that would have to come in front of the council to be approved?
That's probably negotiated in the CBA, right?
Well, if it's not in there, it's an MOU that you have to make with the chief, right?
Separately, yeah.
So
that would be one.
So that, in terms of granular level, that's the stuff that may come back to us.
Could be.
Correct? Okay.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I'd like to move on. I would actually like to make a motion. First one of the night. Page 3, Chapter 1, Section 8, G is in George. I make a motion that the definition of department includes the West Haven Public Library. Page 3.
4.
Mine says 4. Mine says...
Are you double-sided?
No.
Okay, that's why.
Mine says 3.
It'll depend on if you're looking at the red line or not. The red line will be longer. So I would suggest you review with chapter, section, and subsection.
So then forget the
font is bigger.
Yeah, the font.
You're talking about chapter 1.
Chapter 1,
section 3.
Section 3, subpart G, definition of department.
Section 8.
Let's
Section
start
8, definitions.
Yes, let's start this again. I make a motion, Chapter 1, Section 8, subpart G, department. I make a motion that the definition of department specifically includes West Haven Public Library.
Second.
I have a second from Councilman Quagliani. My reasoning is that this charter has done a fantastic job incorporating the Board of Education and the Village Improvement District, West Haven Public Library as a department, but the definition specifically says West Haven Public Schools, but does not say West Haven Public Library. I think just for clarity and to bring it all home, I think it should. That's my reasoning. Any further discussion? Councilwoman Garthwaite?
Does this include the water pollution?
WPCA is addressed as it exists. Water Pollution Commission, I think you don't have it as an association. I think you have it as a department. Where it exists now is reporting to DPW, but later on in this charter, you'll see that we propose to move it out directly under the executive, so it resides as a colleague of the DPW rather than a subdivision of engineering or DPW.
So is your point, Councilwoman Garthwaite, that we should include the water pollution control as a department?
I would like to see that.
Is there a harm to do that?
No.
Okay.
Belts and suspenders and lots of other things.
In all other respects, they are treated like a department just like anything else.
Currently, they're not. Currently, the head of the WPCA reports to engineering, but the department resides under DPW, and we've addressed that to separate it out as its own.
So this charter will functionally treat it as a department, right?
Yes, you'll see that either tonight or tomorrow when we get to that point. You'll see that.
Okay, so then I would like to amend my motion to include the West Haven. Should I say West Haven Public Library or the Village Improvement
I
Association?
think I would say the public library because the VIA is a nonprofit that sits outside of the city.
So amend my motion to include the West Haven Public Library and the Water Pollution Control Authority.
Second.
Second from Councilman Quagliani. Further discussion, Councilwoman Tucker?
What is the significance of being a department? What differentiates a department from whatever this framework is that the water pollution sits under right now?
Right now, it's just a portion of another department. It's not its own.
So what happens when it becomes a department?
When it becomes a department, the department head now is a direct appointee of the executive and reports directly to the executive. In our discussion, we learned that they both have the same qualifications and they're both paid the same, so it didn't make sense for one of them to report to the other. They also, although they work together, they don't work on the exact same things or through one another as frequently as you would think if there was a division and a subdivision, for instance. But the other reason to have departments listed out like this, and specifically you see the public schools called, is because later in this document, we're seeking to make sure that, again, the departments that are engaged in expenditures of city money or hiring, discipline, and firing of city employees all operate in exactly the same manner. So the definitions section, whether it's contract department, department head, is all designed to set it up so that later when we refer to something as a department, you know what it means. You know what the obligations of that department is. You know what the responsibilities of that department head are.
Okay, and so with these, you mentioned appointment of the department head by the administrator, the mayor, basically.
Yes.
So does that now mean that by calling the department, Board of Education a department, that authority would be appointed by the mayor as well?
No, the specific state statute disallows the mayor to decide who the superintendent is. The department, if the Board of Ed is a department or the school district is a department, the department head would be the superintendent. The state statute supersedes whatever you do in your charter here with regard to that.
So the impact only has, as it relates to the Board of Ed, it only really, what's the impact of having the Board of Ed listed as a department?
It's just specifying that they're a department so that when people read now on my page 3, you don't have to dig too far into the new charter to understand that we're planning to make sure that the department, the Board of Ed, the school district understands that they need to engage the city expenditures in the budget exactly the same way as everybody else.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilman Beaton?
Counselor, we wouldn't have to add the fire department to this, would we?
No.
No, because already mentioned later on in the document.
We've got that dealt with later on as well.
Yep.
If you were going for, I don't know, if you wanted to make sure that every single department that was specifically changed in this body was listed there, we could list the Allentown department now that it's part of the city, but that wouldn't have any legal effect to how we operate with the fire department now.
The way I read this definition is that it's supposed to include any and all departments. The reason why I made the motion is because the definition specifically now includes the Board of Education. So I think that highlights that certain areas of the city may or may not have been historically considered a department. And since we're doing it for that, I think that it would be appropriate for the library, since this charter does treat the library as a department, and to Councilman Garthwaite's point, the WPCA.
Sure.
And I think that the reason for this is so that it's very clear to every agency, department, piece of the city that they're going to operate the same way in terms of purchasing, finances, contract approvals, things like that. That we're all one big happy family, and we're all going to follow the same set of guidelines unless state statute says otherwise.
Outside
that's the way I
of
read
the
it.
city of West Haven, there's also a long litigation history of boards of eds and municipalities butting heads as to how much one is beholden to the other, how much one needs to operate within the confines of the other. I don't know that same thing exists with village improvement associations or public libraries or WPCAs, but I think there's no harm in listing them if you want.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. I have a couple more, but I will open up to the council. Anybody have any other discussion points on the definitions only? We're still on the definitions. Okay. I am now on the definition of multi-year contract. That's Q. I just want to make sure, Attorney Cassini, that the definition of a multi-year contract includes a one-year contract with renewals that exceed a total of 3 years.
Yep, that's right. So you can have multiple, self-reoccurring one-year contracts. You can have auto renewals, or you can have conditional auto renewals. There's a lot of shifty and fast language that attorneys will put in to attempt to get around this specific provision that allows for legislative body or specified oversight bodies to have final approval. In this case, we're purposely listing all of those that we could think of that other municipalities have used, such that technically it could be argued that it didn't qualify for something that needed to be reviewed. So multi-year contracts here, as we exist now, if it's in excess of 3 years, you have the right and the obligation to review and approve those contracts. So an example would be if there was a 2-year contract that was then automatically renewing as another 2-year contract, the argument would be, well, that isn't a 3-year contract. Those are 2 independent 2-year contracts. When in actuality, we only sign it one time, and it could have the authority for 4 years to obligate the city. And that's just an end run around what your rule is now.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure. And then for my last piece on the definitions is on W, the definition of quorum. And I just asked for a sticky because I want to flag this. We may need to come back to this.
Okay.
I have a concern about the word alternate is not being uniformly used throughout all boards and commissions, and I think that we need to crystallize that later on in the charter. And if we are able to do that, then I think that the definition might need to be changed a little bit. But that's my last piece. So that's all I have for definitions. Any other discussion on definitions? Okay. Oh, yes, Councilwoman Tucker.
I don't see it written in here, but I'm not sure with contractual agreements whether or not any potential businesses that we may do business with may request an NDA. How does the city handle that if they do, or do you not entertain them if they request an NDA?
No, it would be very difficult to engage a public municipality with a contract that precluded us from sharing the information in that agreement with the public.
Okay,
We're
so
spending their tax money. We can't really do that.
Okay.
I suppose there could be portions of an agreement that could be subject to NDA if we were dealing with, oh, I don't know, sensitive personal information, or if we were dealing with minors or something like that, maybe. But generally, no.
Okay. So that's a non-starter, and it isn't something we'd ever have to worry about coming down where people would be.
I can't
concerned
imagine the
about their
contract.
information coming before a council.
No, I mean, we could. Again, you always have the option to go into executive session if something like that should come up. But I'd be surprised if that was a condition in an agreement that had to be met for somebody to sign with us.
Thank you.
Okay, then the last piece on Chapter 1 is Section 9. So any further discussion on Chapter 1? Okay, we will move on to Chapter 2. On Section 1, Attorney Cassini, can you explain the last sentence to me? It says, the City Council shall provide by ordinance for the manner of warning city elections and special elections. Any may provide any additional regulations in...
Well, that should say and, not any.
And?
And may provide any additional regulations in respect to elections.
So it should read, the City Council shall provide by ordinance for the manner of warning city elections and special elections, and may provide any additional regulations in respect to elections?
Yeah, that's saying that shall means you have to. Make sure that there is an ordinance on the books that if there should be a special election or city elections, then you have a process by which you announce that those are going to be occurring. With any additional regulations that you want to put forth, you have to put those in the announcements as well.
Okay. Make a motion to change the last sentence of Chapter 2, Section 1 to read, City Council shall provide by ordinance for the manner of warning city elections and special elections, and may provide any additional regulations in respect to elections.
Second.
I have a second from Councilwoman Akbarelli. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, so let's go through sections 1, 2, and 3. Are there any discussion? Councilman Donovan.
Yes, Chapter 2, Section 2, Sub C, Terms of Office, Number 2. City Council Board of Assessment Appeals, I feel that we should stay in line with the mayor and continue that as a 4-year process and keep it at 4 years instead of biennial. One of my reasonings, and I'm going to use my district, very low turnout to begin with. Biennial every 2 years without the mayor or anybody else running, and anything could change. And it could, and I'm not speaking for myself because I'm kind of at the end of my term thing, right? But the next person coming up could be another affiliation that takes over, and then 2 years it could go back again. So I just feel that we stay in line with the 4 years with the mayor and Board of Assessment Appeals as well. So I would like to, is it a motion? Or do we discuss
If
that?
I may, if we could hold off on the motion for a second, what I'd like to do is, I'm sure that this was heavily discussed at the commission level. So, Mr. Chairman, if you wouldn't mind walking us through why the commission had decided not to enlarge the term of the city council.
Thank you. Best of my recollection, a couple of major reasons were the concern that the term, 4-year term, was too long for some people, that the amount of time and effort that goes into the council for 4-year commitment was too long. That was one of the major reasons, especially since there's so much time and little compensation and all that. But at the same time, if you come back with a recommendation, we certainly will address it. But I think that was one of the major reasons. There was a feeling that we would lose people running for council as opposed to gaining them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, you still have the floor.
Yeah. And I can appreciate that, Art, but at the same time, I'm also thinking if it's too long for somebody, say I run again and it's 4 years and it's too long for me, I can resign, right? I can easily resign and somebody else can fill that in if that's the case. That can happen with anybody with a 4-year term. So I did think about that. So, it could be a long thing. If it's too much for somebody, an individual, they can always resign and get that filled in again. I just think that it's better to run with the same amount of years as the mayor, in my opinion.
I think that if we entertain that idea, what is going to impact is the Board of Education, because they are already staggered. So in my head right now, let's say that this passes the way it does, then the mayoral election will be in 27, city council will be in 27, half the board of eds in 27. Then the city council is elected again in 29, the other half of the board of eds in 29. And then in 31, it would be mayor, city council, the other half of board of ed. If we go to a 4-year for city council, I think our option is either track the mayor, same years, or we're in off years. So it's either we do 4 years starting in 27, or we do 4 years starting in 29. So we have 2 years in 27 to 29, and then 29 to 33.
Right.
But I think what that would do is create an issue with the off year election for the Board of Ed. How do we address that? Because I think that would be even more detrimental, practically speaking, to have only 4 Board of Ed members on a ballot.
Yeah, that did come up too. So the idea was that if city council were to move to 4 years, maybe the 4-year terms would start staggered from the mayoral term, so that every time there is an election, there's more than just the off-year Board of Ed election, which will probably have significantly less turnout than you'd want.
But I don't think that gets Councilman Donovan to where he's looking for, because
Maybe not.
We're still off track from the mayoral election.
Yeah, at that point, you might as well leave it 2 years.
Right, so what's the point? I understand that.
I mean, it becomes moot. I think we trail the mayor, the city council. Even, you want to do the Board of Assessment of Appeals, you want to do that every 2 years. That's, again, it's just something that I'm not demeaning any other electoral personnel, but the Board of Ed, again, you can only have so many from one party, so many from another party anyways, right? You can't have too many D's, too many R's, too many I, you can't have that. Everything's got to be balanced out anyways. And again, I just think that we need to stay in line with the mayor.
Are you all set?
Yeah, for now.
Okay. Councilman Garthwaite.
If we're going to change the mayor to 4 years, I have a couple questions on that, but if we're changing that, then I 100% agree with Councilman Donovan that we should move so that we go as a team. I 100% agree with that. I guess my question in terms of if we're having a mayor for 4 terms, or 4 years as one term, and then we're having our city council as 2 terms, how many cities, towns do that? And actually, how many towns have mayors for 4 years?
I don't have that information, but many. And many of them are shifting towards that. New Haven most recently that I know of. Hamden also. Bridgeport, yes.
Yeah, in that case, I 100% agree. If we're changing it 4 years, we should always work as a team, because it absolutely makes no sense to have that staggered. Because I'm just speaking, my own opinion is that one party will have more of an upper hand than the other party. I think it should be sort of a level playing field. That's how I feel.
So we're going to have a trickle-down effect with the Board of Ed, so I think we need to think about what we do. We can't, in my opinion, I'm just going to speak for myself, if we were to vote to recommend that the City Council goes to 4 years, I think we also have to do something with the Board of Ed. I think that having 4 or 5, whatever the number is, to be on off years and only having that election might be problematic. And I don't know if the solution is the entire Board of Ed's up for election. So we vote for everybody, in one big happy ballot, or if there's another alternative that I can't think of. Anybody have any? Councilman Callahan?
Thank you. I do agree with Councilman Donovan and Councilwoman Garthwaite. I think it's a tough question. I think before you really dig into it deeper, I don't know the protocol, but maybe see how many are even interested or would vote for that before you start doing all the work before you. I mean, I don't know how that works. Like, do we all have to agree on it, or some people, or is it like a regular?
It would be a vote. If somebody made a motion to make a change, if there are 7 yeses, it passes.
So I don't, I'm, obviously I think this is new to a lot of us, but I think that maybe we should find out if we have enough yeses before you dig into it. Discuss, yeah.
Let me just point out for you, we're still in the draft process, so the document that was transmitted, the official document, is not the official document. This is still the sausage making process here. So, yeah. We're in West Haven, aren't we? So you don't have to have everything decided before you discuss it. In fact, you may find out that things that you think alter as you start discussing it with your colleagues, and that's fine. It's not an official final report until you make your recommendations, notes, changes, and then it goes back to Mr. Kelly's group, and then they finalize what they send back to you. That's the final report. So
here's actually my suggestion, because I don't want to overwhelm anybody and make anybody feel like that they have to make a decision right this second. If someone, i.e. Councilman Donovan, would like to make a motion on the city council end, in my mind, I think we have to do something with the Board of Ed, but we don't have to do that right this second. So we don't have to base one decision on another. I think that's what the point that Councilman Callahan was making. So we could either, when we get to Board of Ed, we could have that discussion, or we could table that part until tomorrow, and we could sleep on it and see if we have an idea. Or we could just say, this is what we want to do, and you all figure it out. That's your problem.
You can do that.
Well, first and foremost, I don't want to do it that way. Second, I would like to. I know Councilman Quagliani wanted some input, and I respect him enough.
Sure.
I would love to hear what he had to say as well.
Okay.
So my thought process back, I don't think it's any shock when we originally discussed that, is I really do believe that in this day and age of volunteerism and public service, it's difficult enough to get someone to commit to basically a non-paying volunteer position for 2 years, yet alone 4 years. I don't know if that will have a chilling effect on younger folks that want to have an interest in government that have to commit to 4 years. That being said, the two positions that are recommended to go from 2 years to 4 years are full-time, in my mind, full-time employees, right? The mayor's a full-time employee, devotes 100% of their time to being the CEO for the city. The city clerk is, again, full-time position. The rest of the positions, including the council, including the Board of Assessment Appeals, including the Board of Education, are not full-time positions that have to deal with the same things that the clerk or the mayor does each and every day. So that was my thought process. I'm not saying I could understand why it makes sense that we want to change the council term to 4 years. Again, as Chairman Vargo said, it's important to understand the downstream effects, because no matter what we do, we're going to disenfranchise some group of elected officials. I don't even know if there's a law out there that says you have to stagger the Board of Education terms, but assuming that they're not, does everybody run in a 4-year cycle, and all the Board of Ed and all the Board of Assessment Appeals, or do we have to leave those 2 or 3 Board of Ed people kind of out on their own? So that was my thought process. It's not right or it's wrong. It's just that's how I feel. So thank you, Gary.
Thank you. Councilman Tucker, and then Councilman Garthwaite.
So, two things. I do think that it is up to the individual that is considering running for office to determine whether it's right for them, whether it's 2 years or 4 years. Most people get in, they're not just running for 2 years and they're going to bow out. I don't know very, very many people who have done that. From what I've seen, people continue on at least for a couple of terms. So I don't think that that's necessarily something that I would worry about as it relates to the term from a council person's perspective. I do think that, and again, we're talking future, we're not talking about right now. I think we have a wonderful, situation right now. It may not always be like that going forward. And I just don't want to see there be and I'm going to use the term consolidation of power. Because if you're a 2-year termed council person and you have a 4-year termed mayor who may or may not care for the decisions that you make as a council person, may not decide that they want you to run, and it can set up a power gradient there that could then have an influence over the council in a negative way. So for that reason, I think the council should match the mayor. And so that's where I would put the weight in my support behind that choice, number one. The second thing I'll say is, if we could just, as you're leading this discussion, I'm watching a lot of people's hands going like this. They want to speak and they want to say something. And I think it would be nice if we could just perhaps just go around the room and offer people, if they're, you put it out there and say, does anybody have any, if we stop at a point of discussion, if we could go around the room and give people an opportunity to speak, I would love that. Thank you.
Councilman Rivera?
Yeah, so I agree with Councilman Donovan for the 4-year term for a different reason, right? Being new, just getting my feet wet, I feel like we're halfway through my term and we're going to be running again, right? I think I'd be able to provide a bigger impact and understand how things work and get to know the role. In a 4-year term, make a bigger impact. As far as alternate for the Board of Ed, the presidential election's another one that's fairly big, and maybe that's the alternate voting period for the rest of the Board of Ed, right? So you do it with the mayor, with the president. This way you get turnout. Just a thought.
So the presidential election would be the off year for the mayoral then?
They don't run the same year, is that correct? The mayor and the president.
Right.
They do not, right. So you're going to get voter turnout in both. And then this way they're not out there alone. And it might be a year apart, but it's still.
Yeah, there are statewide elections. There are other federal, national elections.
Again, just a thought or an idea.
Yes.
So the statewide elections are in even years.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Other discussion? Councilman Garthwaite?
So I agree 100% with Councilman Tucker, also with Councilman Rivera. Another little part that I wanted to add to this is I'm always looking for spots to save money. And if we can save some money by only running our elections every 4 years, I think that would also help our municipality a lot. I would be in favor also of, I don't even know how popular this would be, but we'll talk about it down the road, of running the Board of Ed at the same exact time. So those are my comments.
Any other discussion preliminarily? If there's a motion to be made, somebody please raise their hand. You have more discussion? Sure.
So I just want to say that I agree with Councilwoman Tucker's comment about consolidation of power. And I think, again, not this team, but I think there could be a future team that if you're running all together and the same old line, does that, is there an issue there with consolidation of power? If you have a 4-year term and you're running in the off years, you staggered term, then I think the city council will demonstrate, whoever those people are, that they have the electorate and the balance of power, as does the mayor. Right now, we would just be running under the mayor's line. So, in respect to the consolidation of power, I agree. I agree with the 4-year piece if it was an off year, but if it was all together, then I don't see how we achieve that. Thank you.
Would somebody like to make a motion?
I might as well.
It's your bright idea.
I want to make a motion that the city council, do we do the Board of Assessment Appeals as well? Can we still keep it under a discussion at this point?
Sure.
So the Board of Assessment of Appeals, them being every 2 years, that really, that's fine too, right? You'll have more on the ballot. So it wouldn't be just Board of Ed, correct?
That would work. That would work out, right? If the Board of Assessment remained at 2 years, then they would be with the mayor and then the second half of the Board of Ed, right? Yeah. Right, but the Board of Mike. No. But just put.
So you would have an offset year with the Board of Assessment Appeals. One would have to stay on for an extra year, or you would have to elect for one year, right?
Well, all three are. There's no staggering for the BAA. So all three are up
Okay,
for
so-
election.
Got you.
Was that your question, that you always have them? Yeah. Okay. So I think, to your point, Councilman, that if we left BAA at 2 years, then they would be on the ballot with the mayor, and then they would be on the ballot with the Board of Ed, who are not on the ballot with the mayor that first year.
Well, I see the.
Councilman Quagliani.
I'd love to see the voter turnout for 2 Board of Ed seats and 2
Yeah.
Board of
Yeah.
Assessment Appeals. I mean, talk about, I don't know. I just don't, I don't see it.
I don't either.
All right, so then we'll make it. What about all elected officials 4 years?
The
Instead
motion.
of picking and choosing, we make all the.
Yeah, the motion's yours to make. So whatever you'd like to do.
Before I make that motion, I'd like more discussion on the 4 years from everybody to hear what they think about all elected officials
Okay.
being 4 years.
So let's go around the table.
So,
I agree. I think that the city council, Board of Assessment Appeals, it would not only be cleaner for us to run at the 4 years with the mayor, but it would keep us consistent with the mayor as well in her duties.
I'm still not 100% sure that. I'm still not sure that I'm on board with the 4 years. I mean, even though I am still new, I'm still learning a lot. As Peter said, we would benefit by going 4 years. You know, you're just starting to learn the process and, get your feet wet. And before you know it, you're 2 years, you're up. So I think I need to hear more before I can really make a good decision.
You don't have to decide this tonight either. You can have all your discussion tonight and then think about it and come back tomorrow. We'll be back again tomorrow night. Part of the reason that we have 2 nights, well, you'll have more than just 2, but 2 up front is so that we can get ideas out now and you can talk about it back and forth and then think about it some more.
So I understand about the consolidation of power. I understand all that stuff, right? But if we already have that, right? You have it with your town committees. You have it with people in higher office. Speaking from a guy that I think this was my first election that I was ever endorsed by the DTC and ran unopposed. And I'm coming into my 6th term. I worked hard to get elected. and I worked hard to make an impact. And that was kind of an independent, and I was an independent. So I had people that believed in me and people that worked for me, and got me elected. And I did that without the third floor's power structure, right? Power vacuum. And I just think that I think to be running with the mayor all the time, to be picked, oh, I'm on the mayor's team, sometimes is a detriment. Not this council, so historically, can be a detriment. And then I also think that running a council every 2 years, we can shun people that have bucked the system, and then bring new people on. So there's a huge learning curve, right? We're halfway through our term, and newly elected people are saying, I'm just getting this whole process down. Come next April, we forget about how crappy the budget season was, and we got to go through it all again. And I've heard all the questions that everyone had. I've heard 10 times already. Every year they're pretty much the same questions. So to bring someone new in all the time is difficult. So I see both sides of the coin. Run 4 years and you're there, but we need independence, and we need renegades also. And I think if it was every 2 years, people wouldn't be brought upon. And if it was every 4 years, you would have yes men and yes women that just went along. So I don't know. It's kind of a flip of the coin for me, So I don't know. I'm mulling it over, but I just threw that out there, and that's kind of been my experience.
What I'm actually gonna ask that we do is finish going around the table, and then put a pin in this until tomorrow. I think that this is a very big decision. I think that we all need to sleep on it, but I do think that we will benefit from hearing it from everybody's thoughts now. So let's just continue with that.
I'm just going to stand on my earlier comments.
Well said.
I'm going to add to what I said previously. As the only Republican here, we didn't have a top of the ticket, right, last time? And we only had 1,118 Republicans come out to vote because we didn't have a top of the ticket. So if you're going to ask, say, the Republicans to come out and vote when they already have a Democrat mayor, I don't think we're even going to get a chance to get the Republicans to come out and vote, or the independents, because that's just how they feel. If you don't have a choice in, your top of the ticket they're only coming out when a mayor is running. I don't see them coming out, and I agree totally with what Councilman Ronan said. I don't see them coming out just for council members. Yeah, I don't see that happening. And that's just my perspective as the lone Republican and what I've experienced in the last election. Thank you.
For me, I see the pluses and minuses of all three options. I share Councilman Quagliani's idealism that the council should stand on its own feet in an election, and in a perfect world, that's what we would do. But I will depart a little bit that I think that practically that doesn't happen, and I don't think it happens in a lot of municipalities. I think that the mayor's the top vote getter. They call it the top of the ticket for a reason, and everybody else sort of falls under that. I do think that it's challenging to run every 2 years, just like the mayor. Anybody that's new is still getting their feet wet that first year. It's a huge learning curve. The second year, they feel a little bit more confident. We start to to make some independent strides, and then boom, we have to go walking on thousands of doors, again. So I do find that that's very challenging. I'm concerned with the practicality of voter turnout. West Haven has historically low voter turnout, often under 25, 22%, even in a really good year. So if you're only voting for, a few offices and the mayor's not one of them, I'm concerned that things could be, changed by just a couple of votes. And while that's, and certainly it can happen in an election, and that's what the electors choose, I also don't believe that if a vote's decided by 2 or 3 votes, you could honestly say to yourself, that's what the electors chose. It's just the ones that came out. So I think I am leaning towards 4 years. I have not decided if I'm leaning towards concurrent with the mayor or in staggering. I think that's what I'm going to think about tonight. But that's where I am. Councilman Quagliani, anything else?
Yeah, I think you know where I stand. I'd ask 2 questions, though, if we could find out before we vote. Kevin, is there any state statute that says that the Board of Education elections have to be staggered, right? Or could they all be up at the same time? Because I think that would be...
Yeah, that could be dispositive here. I have a note for myself to double check, but I don't think that it gets prescribed that specifically. But I'll look it up and make sure.
And secondly, if it moves to a 4-year, if the council moves to a 4-year term, I think we have to look at secession again, right? Because I think the draft kind of understood that if it was 2-year terms and the mayor leaves, that the council chair would serve until the next election. So
That's right.
that it wouldn't be 2 years now. It would be, say, if the mayor left a month after, they'd
That's
be
right. Now you've got
council chair would be a
essentially
4-year
4-year.
term,
That's right.
3+ year term. So I think we'd have to look at that.
Yep, that's right.
Thank you.
I need to echo what Councilwoman Tagliatella and what Councilman Rivera said. I found myself saying a lot that there's no manual to this. And what if I didn't have the people to my left or people to my right or people in front of me or next to me that were helping me and guiding me through this? You are literally elected and thrust into the budget cycle, right? And so I've heard it echoed in this chamber a lot that I feel very lucky what I have in front of me. But what if you don't have that? And I think I'm a continuity person, and I think what I've experienced as well with a lot of my constituents is that projects that are taking longer than 2-year terms, for instance, the follow through, the follow up, and I do worry about the continuity of a transient group, that may ebb and flow, I I've got so much more to learn, and I'm already worried about I have to go run for re-election coming up again, in a little while. So I think it's important for a continuity standpoint that, we have more time. That's as simple as that. But I'm kind of with what Councilman Quagliani said, maybe a separation of independence there in terms of doing it. But I learned personally and benefited personally the power of the ticket as well. And how that affected, because everyone knew everybody. Everyone knew all you guys, And so I need more time, basically. I think that's important.
I stand where I stand.
I agree with everybody. It's hard. It's a flip of the coin. I will have to say, one of the things that stood out to me was, I know it's hard to go out and do your marching orders every 2 years. It's not fun. It's a lot of work, but that's part of the job, whether it's 2 years or 4 years. I think 4 years is a big commitment for a volunteer basic job. I think it would scare a lot of people away. I know that Councilman Donovan said that they can resign or leave their post, but I don't think it makes it attractive. I think it's a very large commitment, and I think you're going to deter people. I love the fact of what Councilwoman Garthwaite said and a couple other people said about the 4-year, that you bring the financial part of it, which makes sense, the 4-year. It really does, because you're not spending all that money every 2 years for the election. And again, the voter turnout. I just think the 2 years in the bottom of my heart is to get fresh blood in and not always under that same mayor and get difference of opinion. So I guess I'll have to think about it a little bit further too, but I think I'm waiting on the 2-year, but I think I'm definitely voted on that. So that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Good evening, all. I'm not going to belabor the point. I would suggest the 4-year term. Thank you.
Last but not least, right? Yeah, again, with the 4-year term, and again, just going along with the mayor and just running it, and again, it could be all elected officials, and if the Board of Ed could go on a 4-year term, that would make things a lot easier. Getting back to the staggering, if you do 4 years but stagger it, at that point, I would suggest just keeping it 2 years, every 2 years, because to me, it's, you know, what the point would be just, well, I guess it doesn't matter either way. Listen, if the council here decides we're going with the 2 years, I'm okay with both. I really am. I was just thinking that in a 4-year term, it is a long time to commit yourself. And again, I'm sitting here and I'm saying to myself, well, that would only be two of my terms, right? I could say I've been here 2 terms. But instead I'm saying I'm here 4 terms, which it sounds better, but who cares? It doesn't matter. So 8 years is 8 years. But I just think the 4 years, staying with the 4 years on that is the right thing to do. But again, I'm okay with whatever we end up deciding. Again, I'm not going to make that motion. I do want to sit there and think about it as well. I appreciate everybody's opinion, and I take everybody's opinion. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you. All right, so this is what I would like to do. I have commandeered Councilman Beaton's flags because there's certainly going to be a few things that we're going to need to revisit that we're not ready to decide on this evening. So whether that be tomorrow or Monday, depending on when we meet again. So let's continue on, and then we'll either start with this or we'll just continue on in due course and then wrap it up on the end. But yeah, very thoughtful discussion. Mr. Chairman, thank you. Yep. Yeah, these are big decisions, and we have to think things through practically and many other ways. So thank you all for the very thoughtful discussion on this. I want to move on now to is there any general discussion on subparts 3, Board of Education? I think, in my opinion, that we should skip over that because we may have to discuss that in the context of the City Council. So I don't think we should spend a lot of time on that right now. Yep. Councilman Tucker.
I think that I might have to even go back a little bit further, but registrar of voters, is that a new? I'm under election chapter 2, right? Up here.
You're at the top of that. Well,
That's okay. We can go to.
The only suggested changes in registrars of voters is that you eliminate the pronoun he.
Okay. Yeah, I think there was language I think that we got there before and we moved past it, but it was speaking about them being electors, or it may be under electors because
That's state law. That the registrars of voters be electors.
Right, and where they live is also mentioned under this section, correct? It's not the registrar.
No, the residency requirements for assistant registrars.
That's where I was at.
They also have to be electors.
So It's speaking about elect. The reason I'm asking the question is because I'm trying to figure out if the language in here talks about electors having to live in the city or in the.
Yes, by definition, an elector is somebody that lives in the municipality registered to vote in that municipality.
Okay.
If you go back to the definitions section, you'll see footnote 19. Elector means an individual who is qualified under Connecticut General Statutes 9-12 to vote in federal, state, and city elections under the constitutions of the United States and the state of Connecticut and other general statutes.
Okay.
So we don't use residency requirements because a 15-year-old is a resident, but they're not voters, not yet.
Okay. So I'll wait because that's where I'm going back to.
You have the floor. Go ahead.
It's okay. I'll wait. Right, because I just want to make sure that the language in our charter is clear and in line with the statute, that we're reinforcing the message that we've been reinforcing. You know, you're saying it's statute, and I agree.
So what do you want to go back to? The definition of elector? Is that what?
I'm trying to get to the registrar of voters.
No, go ahead.
Registrar.
No, go ahead.
I'm talking. If you would just let me talk. That's what I'm trying to say. I just want to make sure that the language is aligned, that we're saying that they have to live in the district. That's all I'm saying. And I'm trying to make sure that this language says that. That's all.
Okay, yeah. You're talking about registrars of voters. There's nothing in here that's been proposed to change other than eliminating non-neutral gender pronouns. And the charter as it exists now does not specify that somebody must be an elector or a resident. It relies on the general statutes.
Okay,
yes.
so it doesn't need to say it because the statute says it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Any other discussion on section 4? I'm sorry, section 2, 3, or 4. Councilman Beaton?
Counselor, can you just give me a definition for a second, sir? Position of profit. Does that mean you're an employee of the city?
Position of profit mean that you're an employee? No, that does not mean that you're an employee of the city.
Okay. What does it mean?
Position of profit is somebody who could stand to profit from a relationship with the city.
Historically, Councilman Beaton, what that section is used for is I, as a city council person, could not take a job with the city of West Haven or the Board of Education and remain a council person. The reverse is not true.
Right.
I could be an existing employee or in some form or fashion profit from the city and then become a city council person. But I cannot be a city council person and then go and somehow create a relationship with the city that profits me.
Right. It's a protection against self-dealing, essentially.
Thank you.
Councilman Tucker?
What is the length of time that you have to no longer be an elected official if you were to apply for a job with the city? Just say you know, we're city.
It could be a couple moments. You could resign and be appointed to a position.
So yeah, because I'm just trying to imagine this. It's talking about not us. Not us. I'm just saying that if you were the way this reads, it sounds like.
Point to me the portion that we're reading.
Well, let's say, no elected official shall assume any other office or profit under the government of the city of West Haven, nor shall any elected official be appointed to any other office or position of profit during the term of office for which such member was elected, unless by way of succession in accordance with the charter, nor shall any member resign during the term of office.
Yeah, you'd have to wait for your turn to.
You have to wait for your term, but you couldn't take a position till your term is over. If I resigned, maybe for some other reason, and then a position came open, maybe whatever, and I would not be able to be put into that position until after the term would have run out, even if I resigned it.
Yes.
Okay. So that has weight for a 4-year term, if people are interested in being part of the city.
Good point.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion through section 4? Okay. Section 5 is the election of the city council. Any discussion on that? Councilman Donovan?
Just if it ends up going back where the city council goes to 4 years, that it would have to change from biennial to quadrennial.
Oh, yes.
That's all.
There's lots of combing that has to be done if any of the changes are made.
Any other discussion on that section, section 5? Okay. We'll move on to section 6, vacancies in elected offices. Depending on if there's a decision to be made on the city council, this will be impacted. But if there's anything specific as it reads right now, let's have that discussion. My question, Attorney Cassini.
Yep.
And this is you're probably going to laugh at me because I'm the only one that's going to ask this question. What is what's the temporal definition of temporary?
How long does something have to be temporary before it becomes permanent?
Yep.
What's the temporal definition of permanence?
Forever. I don't know.
There is no such thing, right?
So I guess the way I read this is that if there's a section 2, in the event that of a temporary vacancy exists in the office of mayor due to illness or temporary absence from the city, but if the mayor is on vacation, if the mayor happened to go to a conference, the chair of the city council may not actually be aware of that, and that provision may not be activated because the mayor is, for all intents and purposes, available to still be mayor. So I anticipate that this really will be triggered if an event happens where the mayor cannot, for a limited amount of time, execute the office of being mayor. But at what point does that get that has to get triggered automatically somehow?
Yeah,
or if not, how does it get triggered?
There's no specified prescription as to how many minutes, hours, something like that. If you look to the end of that paragraph, you'll see in any event, if the chair is required to hold such office for more than 48 hours, the chair will then receive the same compensation as the mayor. It contemplates that you should, within 24 hours of the mayor being determined to be unable or unwilling to do the job, step in. The same is if the chair should fail to assume within 24 hours, then it shall succeed to the next person. But we haven't had conversations around what specifically would need to be done to trigger that something is, instead of a fleeting absence, now a temporary vacancy.
Right. So this was part of my issue with the way that the charter is currently drafted, not these revisions, but that it's very unclear how this provision gets executed. So the questions I have for this entire section are, at what point, for how long does the mayor have to be temporarily unavailable to be mayor for this to be triggered? Who makes that decision? How does it get triggered? Who would call the meeting of, for example, if the mayor is unavailable and me being the chair of council does not step into that role, it says that there has to be a majority vote of the city council. How does that meeting get called? I'm concerned that there's no roadmap to how to get there, and either that could lead to inaction or it could lead to the Wild West. And I think if we're getting into the weeds on this, we should button that up.
And I'm just making a note here for Attorney Mednick and I to discuss some type of specifically prescribed method by which vacancy in the office of the mayor is triggered. And then once it is triggered, what's the process that follows? I don't think you see all the details you'd be looking for to answer the questions that you're asking there.
Right. So my specific questions, what you just said about a temporary vacancy, how is that triggered? Mm-hmm. How is that determined that it's been triggered? I do have a question on subpart 3.
Failure?
Yep.
Go ahead.
The sentence says, in the event that neither the chair nor the chair pro tempore is willing or able to assume, I want to clarify that the chair pro tem would be activated if the chair doesn't assume office within 24 hours. Does the chair pro tem then have 24 hours, so now we're at 48 hours. That's how I would read it, but I want to make sure
Yes.
that we're
Yes, each person would have the same period.
okay. So that's how I would read it. So whether or not that should be clarified, I'll leave that to the attorneys, but I want to make sure that that's clear. I would actually suggest, and when we get to this after we do the other things, I may end up making a motion that we change a majority vote to a vote of 9 to select someone to serve as mayor. I think that decision is so critically important that we should have a supermajority. I'm thinking about that. And then also, how does that meeting of the city council get called? If the chair goes AWOL and the chair pro tem goes AWOL, our rules specify that 7 council members can call a meeting. I want to make sure that that's the default position.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Raise hands. Any discussions on this section? Okay. So let's again we'll revisit this after we talk about the other pieces. Sections 7 and 8, I think we can talk about voting methods and constables. Are there any discussions or motions on those? Okay. Moving on to Chapter 3, the mayor. I make a motion. Chapter 3. Yep. Section 1. Make a motion that the last sentence read, "The mayor shall devote full time to the duties of the office." Add the word "the." It's on it. No, I put that in there.
I must have accepted your change in my copy
okay.
because it says the mayor shall devote full
So
time
in
to the duties
does say
of
that?
the office.
So here he says that's okay. Okay, it's not in the. It's not in the. Yeah, so Councilman Garthwaite does not have that. So this was a. Yeah. Well, let's just make it official that way. And
That brings up a longer standing point that I should mention. When we get to the end of this, Stephen and I will ask you to grant us the ability to go back and make sure that all the articles that are definite remain definite and indefinite stay indefinite, and that if things are plural and need to be pluralized or singularized, that we have the authority to make those types. He calls them Scrivener's changes, those non-editorial grammatical updates and things like that, just so it reads appropriately.
so then, do we need to? So then we don't need to have motions on all those.
No.
All right, so then let's just skip that. That's fine. Okay. So sections 1 and 2. Any discussion on sections 1 and 2? Okay. The larger section, powers and duties. Section 3. I'll open that up. Okay, I'll start. Kevin, I'm going to go to section 3, part B, powers and duties, and 1.
Removal.
Correct. Does the city currently have a hearing process for removing employees?
No.
So I read that this section that's now going to be the practice.
If an employee is a member of a union, then the bargaining unit, the bargaining agreement will outline those departures or that discipline or escalating discipline. If I'll use myself for an example, I'm a direct mayoral appointee. She could remove me because she doesn't like my shirt. I have no hearing process. as current to come before this board or anybody else.
So then can you explain to me the effect, third line down, employee respondent shall have been legally served with a written notice of intention of the mayor to remove such official or employee, containing a clear statement of the grounds for such removal, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, that is imparted from the current existing charter.
But we don't do that, right?
You know, you have to tell me if you've ever had any of those. Not since I've been here, I don't think. This is a specific carve out for non-bargained members.
Yeah.
So there's actually a hearing?
Yeah, my understanding is that non-union members go through this process besides the ones that are direct appointments.
Non-direct appointees, but employees, yes, even if they're non-union.
So non-union employees who are not direct appointees.
And I don't know if there's any,
Do those
if there's such a person.
Yeah.
You know, to be honest with you. But all the bargaining unit that's specified in their collective bargaining agreement, you know, termination, discipline, all those things are in there.
Okay. So then am I correct that part one is really limited to employees then? It's not to, because we have chapter 6, section 5 that deals with.
No, it says any official or employee appointed by the mayor.
Okay, so then we're going to have to.
I can mark that for review, but we didn't discuss that at all. It just didn't come up.
Well, I think we're going to then have to do some work to align this section with chapter 6, section 5, because that has a full removal process for board and commission members, and that process, the city council's in charge of that process.
Okay.
So if we want to just limit this, and maybe that could be a discussion point, do we want to limit this to employees? That way there's a separate process for employees versus appointed board and commission members. Maybe that would be the easier fix. I don't quite know. Unless I'm reading what this section does, and please tell me if I am, Kevin.
I don't know. I'm reading it for the first time with you. It didn't come up, so we didn't have discussion about altering this.
The only reason it struck me is because the CRC created a process for removal of board and commission members, and that process flows through the city council. So now I think that, okay, so I think my recommendation for ease is to have this section 1 somehow specify that it's only for employees. Before I make a motion, would anybody like to have discussion? Councilman Callahan and then Donovan.
Thank you. Is this the same for union employees or all employees?
No, there's a subordinate clause here that says, unless otherwise set forth in an applicable collective bargaining agreement. So any CBA for union employees will take precedent over this.
Correct. Okay, thank you. Thanks for the clarification.
Councilman Donovan?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to understand what you're trying to do, because, like I said, this has always been in there, and so you want to kind of break this up, and just leave it as employees, like union employees, but appointed employees, you want to make it separate?
No. So, and we'll get there. But once we get to chapter 6, section 5, that's a new section that the CRC put in that specifically details how a board or commission member can be removed from their seat, and that process goes through the city council. This section here is how you remove an official, that definition of an official includes employees, appointed officials, elected officials, board and commission and committee members. So I don't think that this section, section 3B1 and chapter 6, section 5 align with each other as presently written. So I think we need to do something to separate them. And I think that the point of this section historically has been to deal with employees. And if that's the case, then I think that the simple fix is to just make that very clear in this section, that this deals with employees because Chapter 6, Section 5 deals with appointed officials, if that makes sense.
So basically, you just want to take out the word official, in a way. If you take out the word official, that just leaves the appointed employees, and is that
I think that solves the problem because official,
Could be
the
taken
definition of official includes appointed and elected. Yeah, I think that if we take out the word official, I think you're right, that solves the problem that I see.
Yeah, I was just trying to grasp.
Yeah,
from
no,
my,
I think that would.
my level's not where yours is.
Yeah, but you came up with the answer.
So.
I think. Councilman Quagliani?
Yeah, we're in the weeds, so I'm not going to say I'm trying to get more in the weeds. But so I don't know. Could anybody name an individual that's appointed directly by the mayor that needs to go through this process? So I mean, if Kevin said that all of her direct appointees, which would be the finance director, Kevin, the public works director, economic development director, on and on it goes, they don't have to abide by this. He said if he doesn't like the color of the shirt, he can get rid of them. So who else would be an appointed official that's a non-union member? I can't think of one. So I don't know if this section applies to anybody. If it's not a board or commission member, I can't think of an appointed official that's.
I agree. I don't know who this presently speaks to. I'm sure that there was somebody way back when this was first drafted, but
Is the chief of staff?
chief of staff is a appointed official, right, Kevin?
Yeah.
Like you are?
Fryer? Yeah.
Is he part of a union?
No. He has less rights than anybody else in this building.
I know. I mean,
Is the simple fix to okay, I would be in favor and I would be willing to make a motion to remove that section. What I will ask, Kevin, if you don't mind, can we find out from perhaps personnel or the mayor, is there anyone presently on staff that would fall under this provision if the mayor wanted to terminate that position?
Does this apply to any positions?
Because if the answer is no, I agree with Councilman Quagliani that we just take it out. If there are folks, then I agree with Councilman Donovan that we just take out the word official and we leave employee.
Okay.
I'm getting good use out of Councilman Beaton's. I owe quite a bit. Yeah, I'm not gonna make a motion until I get an answer on that. Okay, let's take Section 3, powers and duties in its entirety. Let's go around the table. Councilman Tagliatelle, any discussion? You are good? Okay. Councilman Roan? If you... Oh, yeah, all I ask is that you...
So who appoints the clerk of the council?
we vote at our organizational meeting.
We vote, right?
I'm good. You're good? Okay.
I also am good.
Good? Okay. Councilman Quagliani, you're all set? Councilman Beaton?
Counselor, what about the fire chief?
Which one?
Ours.
Allentown. It's addressed later, but that's appointed by the marshals with approval of the mayor in this new draft.
The commissioners. Yeah.
Commissioners.
Yeah, sorry, not the marshals, the commissioners.
All set? Councilwoman Tucker?
So, because this is going to be addressed later, how the elected officials are handled, you're recommending, or we're going to be thinking about taking out the word official completely out of just this section?
Yes, there's no mechanism ever to remove an elected official.
No.
I
Is
think
that
that
suggested later? I know. That's why I'm getting there.
Yeah, we don't list all the things that we can't do. But no, there are constitutional arguments against even recall, but there's the method to remove an elected official is that next election.
Okay, because the reason I'm saying that is because when it's talking about of removal, and then you go back to the definition, and you've included in the definition, you've not, it has been included in the definition, elected official is included in the definition, but then it's listed here as the giving power to remove, which is inclusive of, when you say official, it's inclusive of elected official. It implies that we've given the mayor the power to remove an elected official. So my question is, if you leave official there, or you take it out, fine. But if you leave it there, you probably need to state that this excludes elected officials.
Okay.
So if I made this motion tomorrow after I get the answer to my question, in my mind, I would do one of two things. I would either move to remove this section in its entirety because it's completely inapplicable to anybody, or if it comes back that it is applicable to certain employees, that we amend this section to remove the word official. That way, it's only employee.
I think this will come up again when we talk about the ethical components and qualifications and disqualifications. And so I'm just taking as many notes as I can tonight. And Steve and I are going to meet, and hopefully we'll have some more answers for you tomorrow. We'll all have thought about these things a little bit more, but what you think or suggest about the front end may be impacted by what you think and or suggest about the middle or the end as well.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're reminded to consider when we see the word official, the difference between elected officials and appointed. Thank you.
Councilwoman Callahan, anything? Councilman McMillan, nothing. Councilman Donovan, anything?
The only thing I would suggest is, we don't eliminate everything because it does say any employee appointed by the mayor, and that's who it is basically for. So we need to have that in there, I'm thinking. So
Right, but to Kevin's point, he is an employee appointed by the mayor, and the mayor could fire him tomorrow, and he has no rights to a hearing. So this really doesn't apply to anybody that has that right. I think it's where we're going with it. Okay, thank you. Councilman Accarelli, I know you were out of the room. We're on Chapter 3, Section 3, Powers and Duties. We're just going around the table. Any discussion on that section?
I think I'm fine with it, but I wanted to go over the actual word quorum, if I may.
Sure.
Do our bylaws state that it's exactly 7 people in order to fit that quorum?
Where are you?
I'm sorry.
We're presently on Chapter 3, Mayor.
I just saw it. I have no idea where I saw it. Sorry, I'll come back to that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll just tell you, Chairman, Councilperson Accarelli, if you look to footnote 32, the definition of quorum is definition W at the beginning.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
My last question on this section, Kevin, is subpart 5.
To sign all bonds?
Yes. Including those authorized by the city council or any officer or board or commission of the city. Aside from the city council, what board or commission of the city has the authority to authorize the mayor to do that?
To authorize the mayor? You mean to authorize the bonds or to...
Correct.
So to authorize the bonds themselves?
Yes, to sign all bonds, deeds, and all written instruments and documents of the city, including those authorized by the city council or any officer or board or commission. I'm unclear what other body has the authority to authorize the mayor to sign anything.
I don't know of any. But I'll have to ask Steve what he had in mind.
Okay. Thank you.
You put those in your notes and comments in the...
I did.
Right?
Does the Board of Education have the ability?
To authorize bonds?
Yeah.
It's not just bonds. The way I read that section is to sign all bonds, deeds, and all written instruments and documents, which I would assume is a contract. So the way I read the section is that the mayor is authorized to sign documents on behalf of the city and to bind the city
Yes.
contractually, but only after receiving authorization by the city council
I
or
see what
other
you're
board of
saying.
commissions. But what other board of commission can
I see what
authorize?
you're saying.
If the answer is none, I think we should take it out.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So written instruments, would those be checks?
Personally, I would not say that. I don't think
No,
so.
instrument is not a check,
No.
but I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
If you look at the parenthetical in the middle of that, though, notwithstanding the foregoing, the mayor is required to obtain prior authorization and approval of city council for any multi-year contract, including such contracts approved by the Board of Ed. So maybe the Board of Ed itself now, as constituted, has that authority as well, as a separate board.
I think that's been a point of practice historically.
Okay.
And that this charter may be addressing that.
Okay.
So then my question would be, are there any boards or commissions outside the city council that has the authority to authorize the mayor to sign an instrument on behalf of the city? If not, then...
And the answer may be that the Board of Ed believes it does.
Okay.
We'll find out for tomorrow.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Go around the table. Councilman Accarelli? Okay. Good.
Ron, just to your point, if you look down to 10, countersigned checks drawn to the city in the absence of treasurer or director, so it separates out checks there.
Good. Councilman Quagliani? All set?
All set.
All set. Councilman, all set. Councilman McMillan? Your mic.
I apologize. I shut it off again. To designate a suitable name for all accepted new streets and for all existing streets without names. Can you elaborate on that?
Show
Or
me
is it just-
which one are you talking about? What number?
We're at 11. I'm sorry, attorney. Same section 3.
Oh, I see it. I think that gives her the power to name the streets if they don't have names.
Okay, within the city, just whatever. Okay.
Yes.
Mackie Way. Mackie Way.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Councilman Donovan, anything before we move on?
Have you ever seen some type of memorial city naming or square naming or something like that? That's what it is.
Yep.
Exactly.
Councilman Donovan, you're all set? Okay. Last but not least, under this chapter, section 6, grant and aid. This also may be a question for the mayor. I just want to make sure that grant and aid is the appropriate name because we did just separate out the grants department in the FY27 budget. So I just want to make sure that everything tracks and is uniform. Right, section 6. Mm-hmm.
Did you rename that in the budget?
I'd have to double check, but I think we called it something else.
Okay.
Yeah. Right, but she has a department, so I because what I think this is she can appoint an administrator of the grants, and that's not her title. She's not an administrator of grants and aid. So I just think that assuming that we were talking about that position, I think that it should just track.
This is the Olivia position?
Yes.
I'll find out.
Yeah, right. I would just correct the title. Okay. That is all I have for Chapter 3 on the mayor. Anything else from anybody else? Okay. Let's move on to City Council. That is Chapter 4. Section 1. We'll just go around. Councilman Accarelli. You just please make sure your mics are on, that's all.
I'm good so far, thank you.
Good.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
I think this whole section is pretty buttoned up and we sail smoothly as a ship.
Hopefully with no holes in it.
Good.
I agree with Councilman Ronan.
Okay. All set? Okay. You're good? Okay. Good.
I'm all set for now.
I'm good.
You're good. Okay. Um, Section 3F.
Approval.
Mm-hmm. So I understand that we're trying to lump all contracts into one definition. But there's still some that just kind of linger out there. For example, is it by statute that the Board of Education approves the superintendent contract?
Yes.
So the City Council statutorily has no say on that?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Okay. The other the other question I have, and I don't know if this is the statute or if this is by operation of the charter, but does the chair of the Board of Education sign off on such contracts, or is it the superintendent? Because the way this reads,
Super can't sign his own contract.
not his
That's what you
own.
mean.
So it says upon approval by the council, the mayor, or in the case of the Board of Education, the chair of the Board of Education or designee shall be authorized to sign the same on behalf of the city. So in my mind, I'm thinking of the bus contract. It comes before the city council. We approve it. Would that be the chair of the elected Board of Education, or would that be the superintendent that signs it?
Superintendent signs it when it's possible.
Okay, so
Can't sign his own though. So that would be a designate.
Should we change something here because this says the chair of the Board of Education?
What would you propose? Other than or a designee shall be authorized.
Should it not be the superintendent or designee?
Well, I think the Board of Education. I think the superintendent is the Board of Ed designee for signature. No.
Okay.
By hiring.
Okay.
You want to specify? It doesn't matter to me.
No, I'm okay with that if everybody else is.
Is this newly added verbiage?
Yes, 95 is no.
Because I'm kind of understanding where you're coming from. I'm the chair of the Board of Ed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the chair of City Council. I don't have authority to sign anything.
At this point, would be Kebby Waterfield signing it, and she shouldn't be doing that, in my opinion.
Right? Should it be the superintendent or the superintendent designee? I guess I'm just trying to figure out the interplay between the elected Board of Ed and the departmental Board of Ed, similar to the City Council doesn't have authority to sign contract; we just approve it.
Mm-hmm.
Councilman Quagliani.
Yeah, so I'm not quite sure why they would even be in there. If we're going through all the effort to make changes to ensure that everybody understands that they're a city department, then the city department falls under the mayor, and the mayor should sign the contract. And not
The mayor can't have, so Board of Eds are, yes, it's a department of the city, but it's a very special creature, right? So let's go back to the budgeting process. You get to sign off on how much money they get, but if they want to spend it all on baby carrots, that's up to them. If they want to, buy nothing but coloring books because they control curriculum, then that's up to them. And to put the power of the signature on the agreements in the mayor's office and take it from the Board of Ed is to take away their ability to choose how they spend their money. So I think that would be a violation of state statute as it exists now. Now, there may be a way to word it so that we can have more control and more power rather than just more oversight on this city side. But I think the best thing that we're trying to do now is get them in line with what the state statutes oblige them already and not push beyond that.
So
what you're suggesting might be beyond that.
So what would happen if they're not aligned? So the Board of Ed put something on our agenda, bus contract, right? And it has to come to this body for approval. And in our course of due diligence, you told them to go back. We want to reduce price. And they come back with a reduced price. We accept it, but the superintendent refuses to sign it because they want what they submitted and not what the council has voted on. So
Mhm.
then what?
So then he would probably sign it and try and go forward. He would obligate the money. The issue is, and you'll see this later, what to do if people are not in compliance with your regulations and with state statutes. As it exists now, you've got lots of interplay with compliance and non-compliance. You have lots of choices as to when you do and don't see how the money is spent. Like I said, you can't choose how the money is spent, but that doesn't mean you're not entitled to see how the money is spent. If it's all baby carrots, you'd at least want to know that.
Okay. I don't know.
So-
I'm there, but I
Yeah, I want to. I really just I dislike talking about these things because I don't want to come across that I'm speaking of anybody specific. It's again, it's not who's in office now. It might be who's there later. So that a contract is defined. We already have in place that contracts, for all intents and purposes, unless there's a carve out somewhere, comes before the city council. So what this says is that if the city council approves the contract, then either the mayor or, with respect to the BOE, the chair of the BOE or a designee is authorized to sign and bind.
Yeah, the beginning of that sentence controls it. Upon approval by the council, the mayor, or in a Board of Ed contract, the chair of the board or designee is authorized to sign it. That doesn't mean they're authorized to accept it.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate and expand upon what Councilman Quagliani was, I think, saying. If a mayor, hypothetically, presents a contract to the city council says no, mayor signs it anyway, there's potentially repercussions, not the least of which...
Oh, it would invalidate the contract.
Right, and the court of public opinion, the mayor can be voted out. Somebody...
Well, yeah, in the court that I go to, it would just invalidate the contract, right? Because, like I said earlier, if you contract with the city, it's your responsibility to understand everything you need to make sure that that contract is valid. So if you need someone's signature, but you don't get that person's signature, whoever it may be, or that approval and you don't have it, then it's an invalid contract. There are contracts in my office now that were signed by previous corporation councils that predate Paul. They're not valid because they had to be signed, they'd be approved by this body and signed by the mayor at the time, and they're not.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is that there are safeguards in here from the rabbit hole that we're going down.
Yeah. The bigger picture is this entire document is one living organism. It references itself many times. It protects itself many times. And so things that you see later are built on things that you read earlier, specifically definitions, but they're also dealt with in different ways. It's significantly longer than it was before, with good reason, but this is now the third time we've come up with the idea of contracts. We're only on my page 21. It's not the last time we deal with procurement and expenditure either.
Okay. So I think in my mind, the only thing that's separating this out is that the chair of the Board of Ed is my equivalent on the Board of Ed. The superintendent is the mayor's equivalent on the board of, for the education department. I think it would be more appropriate for the superintendent to sign than the chair of Board of Ed. Okay. But that's not necessarily a hill that I feel like dying on. At the end of the day, as long as there's the safeguard in place that the city council has to approve, and if it doesn't, it's invalid no matter who signs it. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. Councilman Quagliani?
So how about we remove be authorized to and just put shall, so upon approval of the council, the mayor, or in this case, the Board of Education, the chair of the Board of Education, or a designee, shall sign the same on behalf of the city, as opposed to shall be authorized to sign the same. So if the council says that here's a contract, we approve the contract, then it would say shall sign the same on behalf of the city. We're giving them an option, would be authorized, I think. And I'm not quite sure we want to give them an option once we decide that this is approved by the council. I don't know. Just a thought.
Does anybody have any discussion on that point?
What do you think, Kevin?
I think that takes away one more step where someone has to make a decision as to what they will do. Authorization for me to do something gives me the authority to decide to not do it as well.
Do you wish to make a motion?
Sure. I'll make the motion
Just
that.
Wait 1 second, please. Just getting a sheet.
Oh, yeah, sure. In approval of contracts, it's Chapter 4, City Council, right, section F, approval of contracts, the last line currently states the chair of the Board of Education or a designee shall be authorized to sign the same on behalf of the city. We're going to remove the words be authorized to and just say shall sign the same on behalf of the city.
Do I have a second? Second from Councilwoman Callahan. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Chairman, I just looked at something previously, and I just had a quick question. On Section 8, talking about the constables, it says the first Sunday in December 1981. Are those dates relevant for why they're in there?
That's probably when that portion was put in.
So it doesn't matter if it's in, right?
No, you'll see things that reference the Board of Ed and go back to like the 1975 Board of Ed election or something like
I'm
that.
saying that. Okay,
Yeah, we're not trying to change any of those things.
gotcha.
Thank you. Anything else under Section 4 of the city? I'm sorry, Section 3 of the City Council. General powers and duties. Nothing around the table. Okay. Section 4, procedure for passage of ordinances. I'm sorry, 5. Kevin, I'd like to talk about this a little bit because you and I had some back and forth, and I think Councilman Quagliani was in on it a little bit as well.
Yeah, let's talk about reading.
Yes, let's. So we. Yeah, let's talk about reading because we're running out of lifesavers and can't afford it. Unless I'm mistaken, I believe that you have communicated to me that a reading is essentially a term of art, that reading the title of the communication to the record is in fact a reading, quote unquote.
Yeah, it's in statutory, in legislative and statutory construction, it literally means that you all just read it. It's presuming that you'll read what is proposed. You don't need to read it aloud to be read into the record. So if you read it once, and you can make reference by any number of things, you can make reference by the title, you can make reference, and often cases, if you have like House bills or Senate bills, they just use the number. And that presumes that those that are there have read it.
So can you explain to me, because I know you tried and I still don't get it, how does subsection B align with that thought? What is the need to have a summary, to have the option of a summary, if we're not reading it verbatim?
Yeah, so subsection B says that if it's 3 pages or longer than that, you can have a summary proposed.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, subsection C says any ordinance greater in length of 2 double-spaced type 8.5 by 11 pages, council shall have the option from the chair to read a summary.
Yeah, and you don't need to read everything aloud to be read into the record, but it does need to be made part of the record. But imagine that you had a bill that was 500 pages long. You can have a summary of that bill. Now yours says you only have to have it if it's greater in length than 2 double-spaced 8.5 by 11 pages. So if yours is 3 pages, then you could just have public record. You'll have the entire thing. But as part of your agenda, as part of your minutes and meetings, you could just have the summary. I think that that's a little short. I would suggest that you all can certainly read 3 pages, 8.5 and 11, double spaced. But no, it's not been my understanding, whether it's the state legislature or any other municipalities, that everything has to be read aloud onto the record.
So can you walk me through a council meeting? How would we do this? Because right now, we use the word first reading as the committee reads verbatim or either the full ordinance or the summary, and then ask for a public hearing, and then after the public hearing on meeting number 2, they read it again, and then we pass it. Can you walk me through how we would?
Well, you don't
actually
have to not do it that way, but you're not obliged to do it that way. I would suggest that if it's a public, all of your meetings are public meetings, but if it's a public hearing, you would want the entirety printed for people if they're going to review it, not just the summary. But it anticipates that you all will read and understand what it is, such that you don't need to have the entirety in front of you each time.
Okay. And it's your opinion then that this does not require it to be read into the record. The fact that it has been printed, it's part of our packet, it's part of our minutes, that is sufficient for our public notice requirements under FOI.
Yes. But if you're having a public hearing, which is different, I would suggest that you go through it in more detail. If there's anybody here. If there's nobody here, then statutory construction presumes that you all are aware of that which you're voting on.
Okay, so then the practical effect is Councilman Quagliani would just ask for a motion or make a motion to approve, not read it. We would vote, go along.
I would suggest you read it once, so that because of the way you hold your meetings, they're being broadcast, they're being recorded. Not everybody has the paper documents, but maybe they're listening, or maybe people have hearing issues, but they're reading a closed caption or a transcript or something like that. It's never a problem to read it aloud one time. You don't need to go through it the 3 times you're doing now.
Okay. So is there anything that we should do to modify this section? The reason I'm spending so much time on it is because I want to make sure that the way it's drafted, does not require what we do now and what the city council's been doing for the last 50 to 60 or 70 years. I think that most of us would be in favor of shortening the ceremonial part of our meeting. And Stacy and I are actually running out some ideas about that. But I want to make sure that this doesn't require us to do what we do. If we choose to go with your
You can hear it from Steve too tomorrow if you'd like. You know, he's done this with many more towns than I have, and was on the Board of Alders in New Haven, and has counseled many people at the state legislature as well. If you want to get a wider view as to how it's done. Best practices would suggest that you go through it in its entirety one time before you all vote on it, especially if it's a public hearing, so that people know what it is you're voting on. You hear me say this all the time, but getting out the word is often more important than getting out the vote. People just want to be informed. They want you to do the work. That's why you're here, but they just want to know. But no, I don't believe you need to go through and read it 3 times.
Okay, so then maybe the question is for just a trained medic. I just want to make sure that this does not require that. I would like the city council to have that flexibility.
Okay.
And I want to make sure under this current drafting, this language, we do have that flexibility, and this doesn't actually mandate what we do.
Yep. This is all a carryover from what exists now in the
And I think
charter.
that's why somebody 50, 60 years ago probably interpreted it that, no, we'll actually sit here and read it word for word.
Could
And
be.
that's what we've been doing forever. Go ahead, go on the record.
And I've been in a part of this building for 40 of those years, so that's the way it's always been done. I'm not opposed to doing it different, so. But I get
Well, the
it,
next
that
one you could
it's
read.
long to read all those ordinances, but I just want to make sure that if we start doing it wrong, that or a different way, that we're not going to be accused of doing it wrong. That's my only concern.
You'll always be accused of doing it wrong if you change it, no matter what.
True.
That's fair.
But just because it hasn't been done that way doesn't mean it shouldn't have been done that way or couldn't have been done that way. You're not doing anything wrong the way you do it now. It might be overkill, but you're not invalidating anything that you've done. It just takes longer to get there. The question is, can we remove some of that, as you said, ceremonial process? I believe so. Steve believes so. You can hear from him independently tomorrow.
Yep. And like I said, Stacey and I are batting around a couple ideas of how to just shorten some of those items on meetings that I'm going to talk to you all about probably in July. I want everybody to get past all this stuff before we...
And then specific to that, what in here might need to be changed? Because, again, there are no recommended changes here, to make sure that you have the ability to make those alterations at your meetings.
Okay. So then my question for section 5 is, I just want to make sure, legally speaking, this doesn't require us to do what we do, that we do have that flexibility if we so choose in the future. That's all.
Got it.
Around the table, anything else? Right now we're on section 5, but I'm happy to go through the end of the chapter if anybody has anything through the end of the chapter.
By chapter, you mean section?
No, I was referring to chapter.
You're in chapter 4 now. You're looking, next would be section 6, approval of ordinances and appropriations by mayor. And we have investigation, annual audit. That would close out this chapter.
Yep.
Right, so investigation is what I wanted
Sure.
to kind of talk about a little bit. So again, this section mentions officials. The city council shall have power by 9 votes of its entire membership to investigate any officials. Can we clarify that we mean appointed officials? Are we talking about elected officials? What does this mean?
So the same question you had from before, essentially.
Yep. Because are we going to have the city council investigating each other?
You currently have subpoena power if you wanted to do so. Again, this is not new proposed language. This is your document as it exists now.
Really? That's so ugly.
Yeah, this is a current section in the charter now, and the way I read this is, if we as a body suspect that there's some malfeasance somewhere, whether it's an employee, an appointed official, board of commission member, or even an elected official, that we have the ability
Yes.
to conduct an investigation. We have to vote in order to do that. The vote includes setting a committee to do that, whether that's an independent committee or the council, as it were. It gives the chair of the council the authority to issue subpoenas to gather documents and compel folks to come here and talk to us. My historic issue with this section is, to what end? Because we have the power to investigate, but it doesn't say what we do with that. So if we think that somebody is, I don't know, let's just take the news of the day. The P card is being used by some body, and
You should refer that to the prosecutors of the state police.
And so, right. So I think what this does is it gives us the ability to figure out, do we think something bad happened? And if so, what do we want to do about it?
Right, so I guess I've never seen this before. Right, I never even thought about it, and I won't go there, but I never thought of doing such a thing. I understand the reasons why it would be there. We can see that playing out in like real life, right? But I guess the question really becomes, this is implying that we have a significant set of powers as the council when it comes down to investigating officials.
Yes.
And I don't think that we've ever exercised anything. I've never seen that here in this body before, and I'm fine with it being there. I could see a need for it if people were to kind of like go rogue or whatever. I just hadn't thought of it until I read it just now. So I'll stand.
Yeah, many legislative bodies have that authority. Imagine you all are responsive to your own districts. The mayor, for instance, she's responsible to everybody. But the members of your district may feel more inclined to speak to you about something that they know about than the mayor. So if somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I heard this thing or I know this thing, and it's substantiated and you decide you want to open an investigation, you have that authority. You don't need approval from my department, from the police department, from the executive. You can do that yourself.
Sure.
So I get it, and thank you for that clarification, but when you say open an investigation, what does that look like, or have we ever seen that done?
I don't know if you've ever done it, but it would look like you all, first of all, you'd vote to do it by majority. And in paneling, you are supermajority, okay.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You're able to legally require people to show up and give testimony under oath and to provide documentation. So if you thought that I was, I don't know, if I was running a craps game out of my office after we get out of here, then you could demand that I show up and testify under oath as to the questions that you asked me and provide whatever information or documentation you think I would have.
Interesting. Thank you.
So to me, people talk that our body is the check and balance, and I think that this is probably our single greatest power to exercise that check and oversight on
Yes.
the rest of the city.
You don't have to look far. Let's look to New Britain. The mayor's not going to investigate herself.
Yep.
Somebody, if they find out about it, should be able to do so.
Thank you. I just never thought that through. I
don't know if
didn't
it's
understand that it was within the power of this body, to initiate such a thing. So I'm glad to know that. Hopefully never have to use it, but thank you.
Councilman Garthwaite and then Councilman Akbarelli.
I love this section. I think it's great. I just have a question. We also have the Ethics Commission. So
Yep.
isn't that a little bit, I mean, what's the difference, right?
So you could refer things to the Ethics Commission, or they can bring things up on their own. I don't know that they have mandatory subpoena power. I don't think they can order somebody to testify under oath, but they can conduct. Do they? They can conduct their own investigation, but they could do it without you. You don't need to refer things to them either to get it done.
Okay.
So you could conduct your own investigation, or you could designate them. You could designate anybody you wanted to take it up as like a special prosecutor or something like that. The point of it is that it flows from the power that the people have given you to be here rather than from the executive. If it were, let's say it were my office's responsibility to investigate, well, I wouldn't investigate the mayor because then she's going to get rid of me. And if I investigate her and she gets rid of me, she's going to put somebody else in there that won't investigate her, right? Then you end up with a situation where it's just kind of a self-fulfilling cycle. The way you have it now enables you, independent of any of the police department, the police chiefs, the fire chiefs, my office, personnel, the executive, to start an investigation, gather any evidence you want, and make a determination. And then at that point, yes, if it's something that rises to the level of embezzlement, then you have to refer that to proper legal authorities. But it may not rise to that level.
Right. Councilwoman Tucker, we have used this before I think it was like in the 80s to investigate a police chief or something like that, right? Was it the 80s? I think it was the 80s. Yep.
Councilwoman Akbarelli.
We actually exercised this during my first term. We used an investigation committee to look into the COVID funds issue that we had. And Councilwoman Garthwaite and I were on the investigation team for that. Unfortunately, with certain parties not cooperating with us, it unfortunately didn't really go anywhere. But we did vote on that committee in my first term, so we have exercised it before.
Councilman McMillan.
My question would be, where are the funds coming from to do that?
Well, we don't build in a budget for it because hopefully we don't need to. But
No, I'm just saying, would it be our council here that we would utilize?
we would have to make an appropriation. I mean, hypothetically, if we were ever to have to do this, we would make an appropriation.
Got you. Thank you.
Chairman?
Yes.
We did have a little line item for attorney fees, so that's how we would pay for it.
Anything? Let's go through the chapter. So also including Section 8 annual audit. Is there anything else in the chapter regarding City Council? Councilwoman Akbarelli, just all good? You're good? You're good? 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 I'm good? 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 Councilwoman Tucker, good? Okay.
Yes.
Good?
I'm fine.
You're good? And you're good. Okay. It is 9 o'clock. We have gotten through a chapter, so we're starting the next chapter. We can go a little bit more to get more work done tonight, or we could break here and pick it up tomorrow. At this rate, I do anticipate that we're going to need Monday. so we should all plan for that. But do we want to go through one more chapter, or do we want to go home?
Next chapter has a page and a half.
Okay, let's get through chapter 5, and then we'll call it a night.
Other elected officials, town and city clerk.
Yep. So let's just deal with the town and city clerk first. So chapter 5, section 1. Kevin, my only question, section C, appointment and removal of staff. Does this in any way impact the mayor's authority to remove staff in that office?
I don't think so. That office is elected, and with that election comes the authority to bring your own people. But everybody, including people who work there or under any other elected official or appointed official, are still subject to the same ethical obligations, employment handbook obligations. So ultimately, anybody can be brought to, whether it's discipline or ethics or simply put through that process of escalated discipline or removal. This doesn't say that only the town clerk has the authority to appoint and remove, but it says that the town and city clerk, which is the same office, shall appoint and remove subject to the provisions of the charter. So again, if we push through when we do tomorrow or Monday, and we get to that ethics bit, you'll see what are the provisions of the charter that allow someone to be removed. But there was someone in that department when this city and town clerk took over with this administration that was removed. And that was done in conjunction with the executive, but I believe that Mr. Lewis himself would have had the authority to do it without approval of the executive.
And my last question on the town and city clerk, the mayor's chapter specifically says that it's the charter expects that the mayor is a full-time employee of the city.
Yes.
This does not for the town and city clerk. And I only bring that up because there have been town and city clerks that have not been here as often and as frequently as Mr. Lewis has. And I'm just curious, I don't know, is the expectation that this position is that individual's primary job? Is that generally what the municipality expects?
I only know Mr. Lewis and the way he does his position, so it's expected of him, yes, but I don't know. When we ask about these questions, what we're really asking is what does the city expect? Not what do we expect or what does the mayor expect or what does the individual expect, but what do the people expect? I don't know the answer to that. I know that it's been determined that he will be full-time, but if he should not run and somebody else should run, shall it be prescribed that that person run for a full-time position? I think is your question, right?
Correct, because hypothetically, there's, to my knowledge, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's anything that says that the city clerk has to be here a minimum number of days, minimum hours of work. They can get elected, collect their check, and show up for an hour a month, and there's not a thing that anybody can do about it except vote that person out in 2 to 4 years. With how important that job is, the thought of that just kind of strikes me.
Okay.
Councilman Tucker?
I agree with that, and I think the whole purpose is to be available for the residents and to take the actions that are necessary, even for the people who are running for office. To have that person available and be there and be present is important, and I think that we probably could stand to clarify that a little bit better. So I agree with that.
So I think, I'm sorry, were you? Okay. So I'd like to make a motion. I'm just trying to figure out where, if there should be a new subsection A and then renumerate everything else, or we should just lump it into miscellaneous requirements. But I will be making a motion that we mirror the language from the mayor where it says the mayor shall devote full time to the duties of the office. I'm going to make that motion for the city clerk. What I'm not sure about is should that be a new A, and then bond becomes B, and so on and so forth? Does that make more sense?
Well, section 1 in chapter 3 doesn't simply say chief executive. It has that sentence after it. So we can do section 1. It doesn't need an A. It can just be section 1. The town and city clerk shall receive such compensation as shall be fixed and shall devote the full time of the duty to the duties of the office.
You know, for the second time, I make a motion that we do what he said.
And then we can construct it exactly as the chapter 3 construction looks.
Great. I make a motion that we do that. Do I have a second? Second from Councilman Akbarelli. Discussion? Councilman Tucker?
And what is the line of succession? Is there a line of succession for a city clerk? Like if he were to somehow not be available?
Proverbial piano drops on his head. If he has an assistant, then the assistant would serve, but you would call a special election to fill that role.
Would it be is this a statutory kind of some consideration? So in other words, like could there be a recommendation that there is someone who could be appointed to fill that seat, or would it have to go to a special election?
I don't know that my answer is airtight, but in the event that elected officials can no longer fulfill their term, you can only appoint for so long. So to fill out the rest of the term would be it. It wouldn't be like a new term. What you would want to do in that case, because I think down there he has a deputy and 2 assistants, it would probably be that his designated deputy serves until such time as a special election is called.
I think it would be wise, for us to think about that and think overnight, and maybe not. I mean, you can obviously continue with your motion, but I'm just gonna, because we could come back to this. I don't have to this doesn't have to be the end of it.
So the only reason I want to interject is because I think if we go back to chapter 2, section 6, vacancies, if you go to B, vacancies on the city council, board of education, or any other elected office. Whenever a vacancy occurs on the city council, the board of education, or any other elected office, the mayor shall recommend to the city council the name to fill the vacancy for the remainder of the unexpired term. Said appointment shall be subject to confirmation by a majority vote of the city council within 30 days, yada, yada, yada. I think that the city clerk as an elected official would fall under that.
Under the city council.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I
then
think
that
the same
covers
process
it.
that we had in the 2nd district, the mayor would make a recommendation and the city council has to approve it.
I think that's.
Kevin, do you think I'm correct?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, that's how you would do it.
Okay.
And that's how you would do it now.
Right. Okay.
That doesn't require. There's no change in this language that would have you
That
do
would
that.
be necessary. Okay, thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on my motion? Councilman Quagliani, did you have your hand up? I don't.
Yeah, I mean, my friend AI here just says that it's governed by Connecticut general statutes if secession, so whatever that is. But it says elected clerk, if the elected city clerk vacates the seat midterm, then the local town officers appoint the successor to fill the remainder of the term, or until a special election could be called per Connecticut general statute 9-222. So there must be some statute out there that describes
What
it.
I don't know is how he has his office constructed, if he has 2 deputies and an assistant, or 1 deputy and 2 assistants. I don't know if it's obvious what the succession plan would be.
Yeah, but I think that's a temporary. We're looking at it as a temporary measure. So I think the permanent solution is just like if we had a vacancy on the council, like we did. The mayor makes a recommendation. It's that gap period.
Yes.
Huh? That's how.
And the recommendation has to be from the same political party, or if the person elected is not from a political party, unaffiliated, then it has to track that.
Okay.
If you can't find unaffiliated, special election.
Okay. Any other discussion on my motion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Any other discussion on Section 1, Town and City Clerk? Any discussion on Section 2, Registrar of Voters?
This is the section that brings up deputies and assistant registrars. We spoke about that briefly earlier. That's where you were asking me if there was language specific around requirements. There's not, except for it says, as provided in general statutes. So that's a reference to the requirements that we discussed earlier. There's no harm in labeling it specifically with the prescription that the general statutes have there. You can't change it from what the general statutes are. So it says, as provided in general statutes, just in case the general statutes should change.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. So my question is, I mean, if it says as provided in the general statutes, it's saying basically what the statute says without saying.
It's not overt because if the general statute should change, then your charter would be non-compliant. But I understand why you're asking the question. It may be worth putting it in there just to get that point across anyway.
And can the language also be written in that would state that if the general statute changes?
Yeah, we would just add another sentence.
Yeah, that this too would change with the statute.
Of course.
Right. I move that we update this section 2, I guess paragraph A, to read or to write out what the general statute says with an additional line stating that if the statute changes, that this is updated.
Done.
Do I have a second? Second from Councilman McMillan. Can you? I'm missing something. Can you explain what you're looking to have articulated in here? What part of the statute you're looking for?
Then you have to live in the city.
That the deputies and the assistants do. Okay.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Just deputies.
Just deputies, right?
Yeah,
because assistants are
can be anybody.
right. Okay, so we're under discussion. My issue is they're not. I want to be careful with what I say because I really don't want to go down this rabbit hole. But there seems to be an impression that the elected registrars of voters have the authority to hire their own personnel, similar to how the town and city clerk does. And that is what is, I think, the crux of our angst here, is that statutorily there are requirements to be a deputy. There's also a function of a deputy. There's certain things that only a deputy can do under the statute.
Yes, let's talk about that briefly because it's less about hiring the people and it's more about assigning the work. Anyone who does the registrar's work when the registrar is not in office is a deputy, no matter what you call them. You can call them a clerk, you can call them a janitor, you can call them a line cook. If they're doing the work that the registrar has been voted in to do because the registrar is out talking to constituents, is out sick, whatever, then they are serving the duties of the deputy, no matter what the title is. To serve the duties of the deputy, you must be an elector. Doesn't matter what your job title is. Doesn't matter what your line item is. So the issue is having people that are clerks or assistants but are doing the registrar's work. Only a deputy may do a registrar's work, and only a deputy may only be an elector, not just a resident, but they have to be, able to vote. So it's less about the title and more about the responsibility. And that can change. You can imagine that there can be more than one person that gets assigned certain duties. If any of them do any of the job that is supposed to be done by the elected registrar, then each of them is acting as a deputy because they've been deputized to do that work. And those people need to be electors.
Councilman Callahan?
Do you want to go first? Thank you. can we put that in writing? Because I love exactly how you said that, because it kind of clarifies everything. It just,
Sure.
I feel like we've asked this question so many times, and you said it where I understand it. Can we, is that something we could add in there?
Yes.
So that if there's, I mean, because we have gone back and forth and back and forth, it's like a tennis game with these people. So I think if you can put those words in there exactly how you just spoke them,
Yes,
that would make
with
all
the
of this
proposed
work.
catch-all at the end, in the
Yeah.
event that the general statute shall change, then this shall also.
I don't, what does that mean?
Does an amendment? Well, okay, before we get there,
Oh,
Councilman.
sorry.
Councilman Garthwaite, do you have discussion?
I guess my only comment is that this is all spelled out in the general statute, right?
It is. It's clear to me in the general statutes. It may not be clear to others. I don't know if you want to make it more specific or more clear by not using the exact language that's in general statutes. That can be fine too. But yes, it references the general statutes because the general statutes are, to me, clear and unambiguous.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Oh, hold on. So, okay. Can you read the motion back?
I don't really have all the words that Kevin said, but I just have basically to update section 2A to write out what the Connecticut General Statutes is saying, and that if the statutes change, then the charter will change. It doesn't say verbatim what Attorney Cassini said. I guess he'll just maybe make up the language.
I'll write it the way I said it.
Is that the general idea of what you want?
I think that's the idea, yeah. Okay.
Anybody else?
Sure, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? One abstention. Motion carries. Anything else on section 2, registrar of voters? Section 3, Board of Education.
Yeah, Chairman, the top portion, is that just reworded? Kev, is that what?
Which number you got?
B, organization for the Board of Ed. Section 3, sub B.
The only revision there is that instead of calling the officers chairman and vice chairman, they're called chair and vice chair. Other than that, it's not been amended.
Everything else the same, okay.
Yes. That's where you see the election of 1975.
But having those dates mean absolutely nothing, correct?
Yeah, it's a reference back to when you can tell that it was put in prior to the November 1975 Board of Ed election, because it references that next election coming up.
I know it might sound like a wise ass, but it's like if somebody reads it, it'd be like, well,
The interesting part of that is
2026. So does that not apply to me? You know what I mean? That's the only reason I was asking that.
no, and it says and biennially thereafter. So that includes everything. The last sentence there says, after the newly elected Board of Ed has been sworn in and duly organized, the terms of office of all appointed members of the old Board of Ed shall terminate. It strongly suggests that prior to 1975, your Board of Ed had been appointed and not elected.
Councilman Donovan, I did ask Attorney Mednick about some of this historical information. He just felt it was important that we preserve some of the history from when the city was incorporated as a city versus a town and whatnot, that it just sort of just tracks and tells the story.
No.
Okay, any other discussion on section 3 or 4?
I'm sorry.
Councilman McMillan?
I was going to speak to powers. The Board of Education shall have all the powers and duties conferred on and opposed by the laws, not opposed, imposed by the laws of the state of Connecticut on boards of education in respect to the control and management of schools. Whatever, I guess what I'm just asking is when it says control and management of the schools.
Yeah, most of the authority and the powers of the boards of ed across the state are set by state statute. Almost
Okay.
everything that they're empowered to do is codified in Hartford by the state legislature, not by this body.
Got it. Thank you, sir. Okay.
So, for instance, control and management of the schools, obviously that means the buildings themselves, but also that which happens inside of it. This is all a carryover, but it says, except as otherwise provided in this charter. So that enabled us to provide otherwise in this charter, and that's what we mean to do with the deep revisions that we've made here. If and when we have larger conversations about the Board of Ed, you'll see that the things that are being proposed here don't actually change very much what they're expected to do and what they're obligated to do. It's just that it's making it much more overt and apparent and much more precise and much more specific to the West Haven Charter rather than relying on state statute. Relying on state statute is where we've been, but it hasn't gotten us to where we want to be, which is consistency, transparency, responsibility.
Got it.
And so what we're adding in the charter, what we're proposing to add, doesn't add any further obligations onto the Board of Ed. It just makes it apparent now that the city is also saying this is what we expect of the Board of Education and of the school district, rather than relying on what the state should say.
Got you. So basically, when it says the control and management of schools, would that speak to? I guess I'm probably going back. Would that have anything to do with? Okay, we're going to get work done within the school because we're managing the school. So then, because they now have the control, would they have to come? I mean, does this speak to? Am I putting the cart in front of
Give me
the
an
horse kind of
example.
thing? Like, okay, it says I'm looking under the powers. So it says the management and respect to the control and management of schools. So if I'm managing, I'm controlling it, correct? I'm in charge.
Yeah.
So then if I needed stuff done in said building, I'm just thinking out, we need air conditioners. I'll use that. Would I then, I'm in control, I am managing my building, correct?
Yes.
Would I then need to come to the city, to the city council to get this work done?
So let's say they're putting in a brand new HVAC system.
Okay.
And it comes with a maintenance contract that will be 10 years. Well, that would qualify for a contract that you all would need to review and approve, right?
I'm thinking so, but I'm basing it off of my powers. Would I
But then the last,
accept as otherwise provided?
there you go.
in the charter? Okay. Okay.
But if they want to redesignate crossing guards, or they want to have their gym teachers provide coaching or something like that, or they want to reorganize their gymnasium into a cafetorium or whatever like that, there's not much that you can say or do about that.
Gotcha.
And that's the control and the management of the school.
Got you. Thank you, sir.
Councilman Tucker?
So this would be an example of the recodification language that would go there. So whenever the statute changed and was updated, this would reflect whatever that change was without having to spell it all out.
Exactly like we just talked about with the previous. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And because boards of ed are those special creatures that are created at state level, but servicing the municipality and the locality, the rules will change at the state level
Often.
and frequently and not really at the municipal level at all.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any further discussion on this chapter? Seeing none. It is 9:26. I would like to conclude for this evening. This is what I would like to see us do. Tomorrow, we're going to start with chapter 6, and we're going to keep going. what I'd like to hopefully do is get through the rest of the charter tomorrow, and then reserve Monday for those larger items so we could just focus on those, because I think that we're going to require some additional discussion on these points that I've flagged, and I don't want to slow down the process. So let's get through as much as we can in the first read, and then we will go back on Monday with with those larger discussions. Question I have for everybody is, I have noticed Monday's meeting for 6:30. What is everybody's availability to start at 6 o'clock on Monday? Show of hands if you're available at 6 o'clock. I'm going to renotice Monday's meeting for 6 o'clock to give us that extra half hour, and hopefully we won't be here all night. You're going to be late tomorrow. Okay. You're not here tomorrow. Okay.
Before you conclude, I just want to bring up one thing that was in Attorney Mednick's transmittal letter. He also issued a supplemental transmittal, and I don't know if you saw that. I just had it in front of me. I'm going to read it to you. But there was another item that the CRC decided they wanted to get to, but we couldn't settle on language. And so the hope is that bringing it up here will get you to consider it conceptually, and if it's something that you want to do, we'll work on language. We, meaning Attorney Medic and I. From his communication on May 29th. At the public hearing last week, the Charter Revision Commission approved the idea of establishing a qualification standard for all mayoral appointees, including department heads and board and commission members. In the haste to complete the revision last night, the provision was not included in the draft report. I wanted to bring this to your attention as the charter moves to City Council and ask the Council to consider making such a recommendation if and when you send the charter back to the Commission in June. Of course, Corp Counsel and I will be available to assist in the draft of such proposal. The conversation that happened, and Councilman Quagliani may remember, was around what standard should there be for mayoral appointees and for in departments, but also in boards and commissions. And it may change from board or commission to department, but should there be a catch-all, such like whatever best practices there are, or qualified in their field, or with specific expertise, whatever it may be? Or should there be something more prescriptive that says they need to do one thing or another? In other municipalities, the one that carries the day usually, but has fallen on hard times and is more or less disqualifying for talent, is that people have to be electors. For many boards and commissions, that is the rule now and should remain. In other towns, my position, for instance, has to be a resident and elector in the city. The city of New Haven has that rule. Anything in between those would still be a qualification standard. So the question is, should there still be qualification standards? Should there be an imposition of one set of qualification standards? Or would you just allow the mayor to determine whomever it may be that the executive sees fit to fill those roles? The idea from the Revision Commission was it'd be great if we had some standards to hold people to, but we couldn't figure out what they should be.
That's a lot to digest, because not every position obviously can have the same standard. Mr. Sissik's position and your position are completely different. And there is a standard for you already. You have to be a member in good standing of the Connecticut Bar.
Sure, but I think Phil's a good example. You need someone who's got expertise and has qualifications specific to that job. Being an elector doesn't much matter to do that job, but in others it may matter more.
So I think the issue that I would personally have is that I don't see a way to have I won't say a catch-all, to have a uniform standard, because I think that every position has its own standards. The question is that I don't have a list of those positions, and those positions may change because the mayor has the authority to create new positions. So how do we do this on a going forward basis?
This is why you see we don't have language to propose.
Yeah, so it's I think it's a good idea. It's something we should chew on, and we're actually getting into those sections now.
Yes.
For tomorrow, that's where we're going to be kicking off. Honestly, I think it's a good idea for certain positions. I think we probably have to
You don't
think
need to
about
do it for each and every one. And of course, the fallback is that if the executive should appoint people that are disqualified, then that may come up in the next election if that executive decides to run again.
Right. I mean, you don't want to finance the director that doesn't know basic accounting.
Right.
You know.
Right. Or a corp counsel who's been disbarred.
Yeah. Huh? Okay. Councilman Tucker.
Yeah, I was going to say the only thing that I would add to that conversation at this point is if there's a statutory requirement for them to be in the district or in the area, that's one thing. But if it's not, again, I'm open to kind of, thinking more broadly of how to make it work so that we get the most qualified candidates from regardless of where they live.
Yeah, residency certainly has value in my mind, but I think that we pigeonhole ourselves because there are just some professions that we do not have a talent base here. There may not be, a ton of lawyers that live in West Haven. There may not be a ton of folks that are qualified to run the Department of Public Works that live in West Haven.
Yeah, and residency isn't the only qualification that has been discussed. But you can imagine that on whatever board or commission you have, if you want to draw the expertise that you need to service that board or commission, you may need to pull from other areas, right? But does that mean that there are other qualifications and standards that you would like to see those appointees held to?
So I think just something to think about. Boards and commissions, I think, is actually an easier lift for us because we have a list of those. It's less often that new ones are created. They're already in here. What they do is in here. So we can, I think, come up with a set of standards of what a board or commission, what the expertise or background should be. For appointed employees, I would think that's more appropriate for the personnel department to put together a job description that has that information. To me, I think that's the way to go for employees. Boards and commissions, I think, would be appropriate and I think is easier lift for us. That's just my 2 cents.
Okay.
All right, so we can visit tomorrow, 6 o'clock or 6:30 tomorrow. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Second, third, fourth. Time is 9:34. We are adjourned.